and welcome 19th of June for what we and you are watching our special broadcast on Sona. No, on a day like today, we're not talking about the artist Sona Jobate. We're talking about State of the Nation Address. And this is something that happens annually, and we always give it our attention. And to give the attention, I have a distinguished panel with me here in the studio, and we also have our colleague Usman Jatta on the grounds at the National Assembly, and we will be engaging him throughout the program. And of course, we'll be listening to the address and commenting on it. So I mentioned distinguished panel. Well, I'll go to my left, first of all, colleague here at QTV, Mr. Mamadou Mbodj. Mr. Mbodj, we're all looking forward to this, so welcome.
Absolutely. We've covered this event for a few years now, so it will be interesting to see how this one sort of distinguishes itself.
How it pans out. Thank you. And to my immediate right, another distinguished personality, Professor Abdullah Sen, political scientist. Professor, it really is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And extreme right, I have a friend who I've known for many, many years, too many years to, to recall, but we first met back in the 90s, and that's Almami Fandingtal. Almami, thank you and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Ade. Good morning, Professor. I'm very pleased that we have a professor of political science next to us, and a very distinguished Mamadou Mbodj to be part of this panel. The Sona is a very important state affair, and we are pleased that QTV could bring something like this for the audience.
Thank you, gentlemen. So, to viewers, now, what can we expect? Well, every year, His Excellency the President gives this address, and he goes through some detail, and so hope you have some stamina, because it tends to be quite long, and there's a reason why. I mean, I looked at this, and I think there were sort of 23 things that he dealt with at the last one. Finance and economic affairs, agriculture. I won't go through all of them. Fisheries, the interior, public service, tourism and culture, lands, regional and government, petroleum and energy, and so on and so on and so on. Now, we all have something in particular that we have an interest in. I'll tell you in a minute what mine is. Well, Mr. Mbodj, what are you particularly looking forward to hearing, possibly from His Excellency's speech?
For instance, are we going to deviate from the usual pattern? That would be quite interesting, just as you said. What's the structure, sector by sector? It's very data heavy on growth and all these other indicators. What does it state when it comes to roads? How many kilometers have we built? You're going to have that. Sure. You're going to have the partnership framing. We will thank IMF, World Bank, and all the rest of it. And then there are other areas here. So you're going to have the vision statements emphasizing on unity and all of that. That's the usual pattern, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So it will be interesting to see. The details, something else. Sure. But the delivery...
As I said, I have my own biases, Professor, and I'll tell the viewers what I'm looking forward to hearing. But from you, anything in particular?
I am looking forward to hearing the President address, more specifically, concerns that affect the population. The address, I'm sure, is going to be quite interesting. A lot of data and so forth and so on. Sure. But as a member of a non-government organization, I am very concerned about the day-to-day living of the ordinary person. Things have been very difficult, to say the least. But I'm sure I'll have more time to say.
Sure. Almami, for you, anything in particular you're looking forward to hearing?
Given the crisis within our sub-region, the crisis of legitimacy leading to the fragmenting of ECOWAS, giving also the crisis all over the world, the war between Israel and the Palestinians, and then with Iran. That a foreign policy statement or direction, I think would be very useful. And given that we are in the Golden Jubilee of ECOWAS, we are in the Diamond Jubilee of the Gambia. A rethink, especially in our foreign policy posturing, I think would be useful, because this morning I heard the IMF is giving us some resilience, nice kitty.
$60-something
$63 million. So a rethink of some of the consumption habits of government itself. Things like the level of austerity, you know, how much it costs, for example, to house government itself, its agencies. All of these things, I think, if at all it can be signaled in the State of the Nation address, would give us a lot of pointers on which to say that, okay, this is the policy direction of the Gambia when it comes to foreign policy. Of course, the overarching climate crisis that everybody is concerned about, that 10 years after the Paris Agreement, there has not been significant inroads to deal with the global climate crisis.
And even here locally, we're in the third week of the rain season, and we've had 10 minutes of rain where we are.
Yeah. So these are, for me, these are the urgent issues that policy may need to speak to. I hope that the President in his statement will address some of those concerns.
And like Almami, and I said I have my own biases, I think one of the factors that we have to deal with is the Trump factor. The fact that this is a country that's heavily reliant on remittances, and the US government is now talking about taxing remittances, as well as the kind of general disengagement from Africa, including many organizations that were funded directly from US funds. Those funds have been pulled now. You know, will he address that? And I have to say, the OIC, as chairman of the OIC, I would expect to hear something about, you know, the current crisis that's happening in the Middle East, you know, specifically the US and Israel against Iran. Let's frame it that way. And that's you know, something there. You mentioned the World Bank, also the IMF, also last week the World Bank, 48 million to strengthen, you know, kind of, you know, public sector governance and that sort of thing. How are we going to spend that money? And I have to say this, I mean, people are probably fed up of hearing me say it. You know, we've had a lot of people who've come in, Tony Blair Institute, trying to strengthen governance and how our public sector organizations work. And yet, just last week, you know, I complained on air, 3 government departments wrote to us to cover events, no date, no place, no time. That's as basic as you can get. So we can talk all the fancy talk we want about strengthening governance and so on, and, you know, we tick these boxes. But, you know, so I know every year he covers public service administrative reform, and I think we need to hear something tangible rather than just, you know.
And that's really my concern. That is truly my concern. We have all these very fancy models and frameworks. How is this affecting the average Gambian? That's exactly why I'm going to be focusing on. For me, really, that is what we should be talking about.
Great.
Ultimately.
And I think at this point, before you come in, I think we can go to our colleague Osman Jatta, who is on the ground. Osman, what can you give us a flavor of what is happening, the ambience? Over to you, Osman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ade. As you just said, you could hear in the background the music played by the Army Band to some extent. The atmosphere is very lively from the National Assembly here, with everybody on standby to wait for the arrival of President Barrow. Already we have heard the arrival of the Vice President, Mohamed B.S. Jallow, together with other members of the government. We have seen members from the legal community, you know, opposition parties and development partners are all on standby. They are already in the chambers waiting for the arrival of the president any time from now, because we are expecting that by 10 a.m. or 10:15, the president will be in the chambers to deliver his State of the Nation address, a very important day for the country, a key national event which is mandated by the constitution of the country. So this is what is happening here, and everybody is, like I said, is on standby waiting for the arrival of the president, who will be here anytime from now.
Osman, before I go to my panel, were you able to engage any of the people who are there as to what their expectations are for this State of the Nation address? I think the police band or the army band are about to interrupt us, but very quickly.
Indeed, I did not engage, but there is high anticipation with regards to some of the things that could be discussed by the president. As we all know, there is high tensions, you know, everywhere within the Middle East. And as chairman of the OIC, this is one thing we would expect that the president would address, and equally as well the pending constitutional bill at the National Assembly and other key issues that are linked to the people, because it's about the people, and that is what Abraham Lincoln defined democracy as, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So we are expecting that the president would talk about a range of issues from health, education, and infrastructure, and equally as well government spending to make sure that the economy is thriving. Mr. Adi.
Thank you, Osman. Thank you for that. Now, if I can come back to my panel here, because I think he's about to be drowned out by the band there. Mr. Mboji, you were about to engage when Prof said that, it's about, yes, all these reforms, but how do they impact the ordinary person? That really is what we should all be concerned about.
That's it. So because in the end, it's really what's happening on the home front that really is going to make the difference sooner or later. What do people talk about really is about things being expensive. Demand side economics, the supply side, building infrastructure and all of that. Of course you need that, but how do you balance it with the other? What is the point of producing so much when your people can't afford it?
Yes.
So you have to deal with both. So on that home front, that would be an issue, cost of living crisis, and even on corruption, because of the recent explosion of Darbo's report and what happened with the Jammeh's assets and all the talk about that. Maybe I think he will feel that he has to address that, and whatever measures would come into place. I'm sure he will say that, well, we formed the Anti-Corruption Commission and all the rest of it. But I think these are key issues that people are actually talking about.
And just before I come to our panel, our colleague there, Usman Jatta, when he went to the Monetary Policy Committee meeting afterwards, and the central bank governor gave this pronunciation that they expected the economy to grow by 6.5%. There was an audible gasp, he said, from the other journalists there, but we thought it was contracting. So how do we manage those expectations, the reality in terms of hard, cold facts and figures, and what people are feeling? Can that ever be managed, Prof? I'll come to you first.
That's a very difficult task, to say the least. But what I'm really concerned about is the extent to which policymakers are affecting people's lives directly. I mean, I'm a political economist. I have been concerned with development and many other issues surrounding people's lives. And I have gotten to the point where I don't pay much attention to what the politicians are saying. I am really more interested in seeing the impact, the influence it has on people's lives. This is the core. And really, having spent a lot of time in the academy, talking about GDP, GNP, and so forth and so on, my concern is to really ferret out the degree to which people's lives are improving on a daily basis. To me, this is the crux of the process.
Right. I remember in Sierra Leone in the 80s, when they had the global financial crisis, you'd go to the market to buy your cassava leaf or potato leaf, and the woman there would say, the price has gone up. And you say, why? You say, "Nadi global." It's the global. It became, Nadi global became the phrase. But Alabami, I think you wanted to come in there because I think Prof has kind of hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks. I mean, it may be humorous for the lady in the market to say about the global. It speaks to the globalized nature of the economy of the Gambia. I mean, 99% of everything in the Gambia is imported.
I was going to come to that. I'm glad you did.
You need hard currency to do that importation. And that currency has been, the dollar has been depreciating against these currencies, global currencies, for the longest time. I hear the governor of the central bank said that there has been a stabilization period in the first and second quarter of this year. But the impact is still being felt, because if I bought something in October of last year for $2.50, for example, the crate of eggs, because that is consumed by almost all households. It's a source of protein. You bought it for $2.50. Now you are buying it for $300 or $3.50 or $3.70, or some even selling it for $400. So for me, is obvious, but those eggs are local eggs.
Yeah, quite.
So the business man or the business woman has to contend with importation. So I really think that the economic arrangement, the economic structure needs a looked at. You know, earlier I spoke about this being the Diamond Jubilee. It means that a whole generation of public servants with skills are now into retirement.
Indeed.
So retirement and pensioner poverty is a serious problem. To come back to what Prof was saying, you go to a community, somebody has been working all his life, now he is retired. At that stage, he has really very little or no income because the pension that is paid to him or her it's nothing. You cannot take it to the market because when you take it to the market, it gets you very little. So this, for me, I think speaks to the fact that we need to either reinvent our economic policies or we have to do a lot of import substitution so that the economy is more productive and this would lead to more jobs. This would lead to more employment so that net productivity or what they call the gross domestic production is high. If we can cut our import bill just by 10-20%, I think some of the complaints we are having, we would be addressing it. So in the statement, we expect really that some of those things would be looked at from that point of view.
Because pensions, before you come in the UK, my pension is linked to inflation, but we don't have that here. And you know, when you don't have that, it means that you know, if it stays at a certain level, it's worth less and less every year as inflation. And very quickly, I buy, those who are in the office know, I buy coffee every week. The same jar of coffee from the same supermarket that I was buying for 300, just across the road from us, is now $5.95. 200 gram of Nescafe in a year. That is ludicrous. Amboj, you wanted to come in.
Absolutely.
And we can see on the screen there the procession into the. We can see the speaker and some of the other National Assembly officials, and they are leading a procession into the National Assembly. And of course, once that is conducted and they sit down, then of course we will get His Excellency the President will come in, and you know, then everybody will sit down. But they'll wait till he arrives, and then of course he will proceed in, and then they will go in to follow him. So very, very colorful. And the rains, I'm glad to say, have held off. In case anybody's watching this outside of the Gambia, we are in the rain season. But the rains have held off in this part of the country at least. And so we haven't had, and so we have a beautiful sunny day there at the National Assembly. Mr. Mboj, you wanted to come in whilst we are watching those pictures. Yes.
That's it. Earlier on, you said, who was it that said that we're going to, our economy will grow by 6%?
The central bank governor.
Central bank governor. Absolutely. You can have this headline growth, as they call it, 6%. But when would this sort of macroeconomic gain sort of reflect in household welfare?
Our colleague Usman Jatta has managed to ensnare the Deputy Speaker, and so before he has to dash back and join the queue, Usman, over to you and the Deputy Speaker. Let's hear from you and from him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fra. Mr. Ade, we're here with the Deputy Speaker and other senior government officials who are already on standby for the President. Mr. Speaker, good morning. A very important day, a national event for the Gambia. What does this mean to you, and what are your expectations?
It's very solemn and unique. It's the only event where you have all organs of government in the same chamber. And it signifies the importance of today, because the President will be here and he will tell Gambians the state of affairs of the country, what solutions he has for the country, in terms of legislations, in terms of policies, and in terms of implementation of projects and programs for the well-being of the Gambian people. And that Parliament will scrutinize that, debate over it, and of course agree with him, and as well as also proffer further suggestions as to enrich and deepen those policies and programs.
Are we expecting any reforms, or are you expecting?
Yes, we, of course, every year we expect further strategies that will enhance service delivery, and of course that can't be in the absence of reform. And certainly there's going to be a lot of reforms.
Thank you very much. That's the Deputy Speaker speaking there. I bet we would have to switch to the President, who has already arrived to some extent. He will be here any minute from now. He'll be joining the team of senior government officials, development partners, who are all on standby to witness his arrival, and equally as well to listen to his State of the Nation address, which will be televised live and is interesting here. The atmosphere is very lively, Mr. Ade.
Thank you, Osman. Thank you for that. And we heard him speaking to CD Keita there. Mr. Mboj, Njaya, I beg your pardon. You wanted to come in.
That's it. Yes. So yes, just as we said, with the so-called headline sort of growth and that sort of thing, here I think the index that really matters is the per capita income. For a very long time, very, very slow. That's compared to the headline stuff. You may get 6% growth or 5.3% growth. Look at per capita income, 0.5.
Yeah,
all the statistics that we've seen, 0. This has been very slow, but that's really what people feel. So this has been the problem. Some economists will tell you it's easier, if you like, nothing is easy, but relatively, get your infrastructure in place. When you have these sort of structural constraints, get production going, get the infrastructure, be it in energy or agriculture and all the rest of it, obviously, for the intermediate and longer term.
Sure.
But in the shorter term, well, people's incomes, they matter.
That's right.
Jobs, employment in the short term, what do you do? That matters. We were told about the 150,000 employment they will create. We'll see what the report will be, the feedback so far, how many they've employed. So these are the things that matter. I think that would be the government's main challenge. It's easy about the roads. Oh, we know, we can see them. About energy, even now regular supply, at least in my area, I've been surprised in the past 6 months what's been happening. But is it uniformly so across the country? I do not know. So you will get that. But the bit that hurts the pocket, ultimately that would be the challenge. I think that will make a huge difference at the poll.
And we did a sort of unscientific poll after Tobaski, when, as I discovered, almost everybody has a town or village that they go to from the urban area. And most of the people who came back, totally unprompted, what they spoke about were areas that they had grown up in that had never had electricity, that do have electricity now. I mean, that genuinely surprised them, and people were coming to my table and telling me quite independently of each other. It wasn't like I asked the question even. Just as they were coming back. One of my colleagues said he was so surprised at a little hamlet of about 15 or 20 houses that he stopped and asked them, and they even went in and showed him the meter, the electricity meter, and he was just blown away by that. So as you said, it's slowly being rolled out nationwide. It's a small country, and it should not be beyond, it should not be rocket science to electrify the whole country. And I would like to hear something about that, really, because again, this is something that is my kind of bugbear, that we have countries in the region that have really improved by using solar energy to power their economy and their country, and we can learn from them.
And just to add to that, because international support is very critical for that, especially what they call the just energy transition, so that solar-powered, wind-powered, electricity is available continuously and at affordable price.
Well, we just had a conference, haven't we, about how to get finance for energy projects, just in the last couple of days. Yes. So you're right, at affordable price.
Yeah, so what is also expected, therefore, is how our diplomacy, for example, is helping to bring the goods home.
The national anthem is about to be played, so gentlemen, we will go back to our...
kon nag loolu moom mooy bàkki réew mi di national anthem léegi nag moom njiiti réew mi dina joxe ndigal.
So there we heard the national anthem, and His Excellency the President there stood for the national anthem, and I guess now he will inspect a guard of honor and then go in. Gentlemen, we've been kind of having a kind of general discussion. Absolutely. We've been trying to guess or second guess His Excellency the President. There might be big policy announcements, there might not be, because traditionally there's usually one or two kind of sneaked in there that would register as a big policy announcement. And like I said, I don't think we have any idea what that might be. But obviously, we've all said, you know, what we're looking forward to hearing and seeing from His Excellency the President. And so we will be taking notes as, you know, as he goes through his speech, so that we could kind of come back with sort of informed. We can see His Excellency the President there kind of being marched in with the sort of guard of honor to the National Assembly. You know, we talked about things like, you know, the diaspora. I mean, somebody said to me in the office, will he mention diaspora voting, for example? Again, we heard here draft constitution is coming up again next Wednesday at the National Assembly. Will he touch on that? You know, again, I mentioned the kind of Trump effect. A year or two ago, World Bank put out this kind of thing, the graph that shocked everybody, that a country as small as the Gambia ranked 9th in the whole of Africa for remittances. When they combined the official and unofficial remittances, Gambians were sending $1 billion back here annually. The aid we get doesn't even come close to that. So there is that. And in a way, we've been helped with the kind of upturn in the tourism, in the kind of post-COVID improvement that we've seen in the tourism sector. And of course, we then need to step up our game by kind of, you know, improving the offer. And Mr. Mboja and I always talk about we can't rely on sun, sea, and sand forever, because we're not the only place that has that. So what else do we have to offer? So, you know, because tourism is something that the President will always touch on, given its importance in the society and in the economy. But, you know, I think generally, you know, the economy is such a big thing that he normally starts with finance and economic affairs. And of course, that is something that everybody will be paying particular attention to, Almami.
Indeed. I think it takes us back to that issue. Even the tourism, giving its importance, how much of it is produced in the Gambia? I mean, getting to Gambia is relatively very expensive. When they come on these full packages, the ripple down effect on the general economy.
It's minimal.
It's very minimal. So these are all opportunities to strategize and to seek public-private partnerships with the private sector, so that the economy can have a boost and momentum that can really help it to be more productive, to be more, not only growth in the terms of the figures, but to be inclusive of a lot more sectors. I think,
and this dives into what Prof. Sen has always talked about, that, you know, how is it impacting the ordinary man and woman? It's always nice to say, yes, we have the, you know, tourism sector improving and so on, but are people benefiting from it at the local level?
And that's really my focus for this session. I have read, written, observed Gambian politics for a long time. And it seems to me that the elite continue to enjoy the benefits as opposed to the regular people. I want to see a political system that deviates from that and focus on the ordinary person. I am part of the Nyangsana Institute, and this is our focus. For over 50, 60 years, Gambia and Gambians have been focusing on a model that doesn't work. And I'm saying it is time we began to rethink these issues. These are macroeconomic concerns that have not really delivered. And so much has been written, so much has been spoken about these things. And for us to focus on this without veering to the outside really is is injustice.
Sure, sure. We can see His Excellency the President there greeting, I think, members of the National Assembly and people posing for photos with His Excellency the President. But Prof, sorry, I cut you off.
That's fine.
In
That's fine.
mid-sentence.
And what I'm saying is, this is all fine. I mean, I don't have any problems with this, but it doesn't deliver.
Yeah, sure.
Gambians are suffering on a daily basis. And what I'm saying is, this, we're going to hear the speech, we're going to hear him applauded, and so forth and so on. But the average person who goes home after work, does he have a meal? Does she have a meal? The child that comes from school, does she have adequate medical attention? These are the concerns. This, to me, I mean, I really didn't want to come. Because I find it frustrating, to say the least.
But Prof, I think also a constitutional democracy has these rituals and moments that enhances it, and exchange of ideas like this, we hope will inform the bureaucracy, the technocrats, because...
But for how long? We've been doing this for...
Well, which is why in kind of my earlier sort of intervention, I said that we look for big policy announcements that somebody can hear and say, oh, that's going to impact me directly. You know, because unless and until that happens, when somebody can hear something that clicks with them, it's all just talk, as Prof says.
Bureaucracies, bureaucracies are known for producing excellent ideas and spreading them out. But the reality is people are getting poorer in the Gambia. Things are getting more difficult on a daily basis. And we, the elite, are doing a little better. 90% or more of Gambians have difficulty obtaining a meal or two a day. To me, these are the issues. This, to me, really is not about this. To me, he can do all the things he wants to do, make all the pronouncements, but when he goes to his office the next day,
what then?
That child is hungry. That school doesn't have pencils. To me, really, this is what Gambia should be focusing on.
Ambience
wanted to come in there.
Yes, there's a lot to be said for with the view. But I look at today as our equivalent of what? State of the Union address? Or the King's state opening of Parliament. So, per se, this in itself, maybe that's not the issue. The issue is, how do you make it matter?
Absolutely.
Do not turn it into a platform for political rhetoric over sort of public accountability, practical accountability, stuff like that. And we've seen over the years, it tends to focus more on economic performance, which they overpitch, avoid talking about government failures, don't they? The focus is on ambitious, but perhaps unfunded projects and stuff like that. So you can have it, but please make it matter.
Absolutely.
You know, say what you mean and mean what you say, as we tend to say. Make it matter, then it makes all the difference.
Yeah, Mr. Ambience, I agree entirely with you and Professor Sen, but we have to understand a constitutional democracy has to have a process, if you like, a ritual, to demonstrate accountability and transparency. And this is the occasion where you have the legislature, you have the judiciary, and you have the executive coming to give a report card on performance. And analysis like this, informed by experience, people like Professor Sen, are necessary in a constitutional democracy to raise the issues that are of fundamental importance to Gambians and to our development partners. Because if development is not impacting the man in Sinchus Balia, we have to find a way of making the government of the day accountable for it, but also in a transparent way, similar to the budget that is announced every year by the finance minister. These are all accountability measures that the populace expect in a democratic dispensation. You mentioned the State of the Nation address, state opening of Parliament. These are all that, I mean, the reporting is a good part of the process to hold whoever is in power accountable, but through the rule of law. If you don't have this kind of occasions, it will be very difficult to even be able to say that 90% or 20% or 30% this way, that way. Ade said that people came and tell him that, oh, electricity in my village, in my hamlet, the road network, all of these are things that are measurable.
Yeah, sure.
So even the delivery of the statement, Gambians are going to measure the president as to its truthfulness or how relevant is it to them in their daily lives.
Yeah.
But lastly, Prof, I just want to say, this is going to be in English. How many Gambians understand 8%, 6%, 3%? You know, President Abdullah Wade famously said when he was inching for the presidency, he said nobody eats 2%, nobody eats 5%, or nobody eats breeches. So I'm just saying that I understand Prof's concerns, frustrations, but in a democratic society, this is the best way we know how to hold our leaders accountable, that periodic reports of the state of affairs is given and citizens freely. And I think Mr. Mboj made a very profound statement that this is not a platform for partisan rhetoric.
Political rhetoric, yeah.
It is to face the facts the nation is facing and give an honest answer to the concerns of ordinary citizens.
And before Prof comes in, so Prof was pulling at the reins there. And I agree about, I think, the necessity of it, because you can go back over last year and the year before, and you can say, okay, what did he say then? What were the promises made then, and have they been delivered? And people can assess that. You know, if people take the time, either ourselves or anybody who can read, you know, what was in the statement last year, or listen to the statement last year, and then see. But I think we have to be honest when you mention the fact that this is given in English in a country where a significant proportion of the country doesn't speak or understand English. It does need to be translated into various languages that can actually resonate with people. Otherwise, it's just, you know, speaking to the elite.
This is fundamentally very elitist. It doesn't address the concerns that the ordinary Gambian has. And I'm speaking now not so much as an academic. I am speaking as a person who is concerned with the day-to-day living of the ordinary Gambian. The ordinary Gambian might watch it because it is interesting. It's
a spectacle.
It's spectacle, yes.
Yeah.
But
that's not a bad reason.
but is there substance?
But it's superficial.
Yeah, is there substance there?
It is superficial. We have to go down to the core. Yes, all these manifestations, they are, you know, at the top. If Gambia is to move in a better direction, we must begin to go to the grassroots. 90% or more of our population are poor and extremely poor. This is where we must focus. This is fine. I don't have any problem with him coming in and telling us about the data. But to what degree are that data impacting people's lives?
So we talk about a democracy, and these are the things we expect in a representative democracy, that you come and you give a report and you set out your agenda for the year ahead. Because this is an annual thing. And as I said, you know, there are 20...
How far does it go?
Well, that's the point I was going to come to.
How far does it go?
And that's the point I was going to come to.
That's it.
So do you report? Do you set out your agenda? Also, it gives the president an opportunity to reflect and say, last year I said this, this, and that, and I've been able to deliver this, this, and that. That's what people would... Like I said, the electricity and the roads thing, they're there for people to see. I mean, yes, you can't eat roads, you can't eat, but they make a difference. And just 2 days ago, the president gave a statement saying that, you know, without proper road infrastructure, development is impossible.
Absolutely.
And he's right. So there are certain things that have to happen gradually, but we do need to kind of move on and move beyond the kind of reliance on imports. I mean, we must want to be one of the few countries where our staple food is 90 or 95% imported rice. There can't be many countries where the staple food is imported to that extent.
And I think
why
is
is
fundamental.
that?
That area is truly fundamental, because the multiplier effect of import substitution is more employment and more stability of your foreign exchange reserves and exchange rates. So it is important to ask this question fundamentally. If we are now doing very well in resource mobilization, domestic resource mobilization, where does that mobilized resource go to? Now, this speaks to the consumption habits of government. What is government spending these greatly mobilized resources on? Are we getting more houses? Are we getting better schools? Are we getting a better healthcare system? I mean, it's not, like you said, it's not rocket science. Every time, every quarter, we hear that the GRA is doing tremendously well.
They're collecting more and more.
But once you collect that, does it only go to pay interest rates on our obligations internationally?
Because one of the most abused phrases is we are a tax-based economy.
Yes.
So where are those taxes going now that they're being collected in a much more efficient way?
But that's such a meaningless statement, Ade, because every economy is tax-based.
Quite.
You know, some revenue may come from non-tax resources, but even the development assistance we get from these developed countries is from their taxes. So really, I think fundamentally the consumption habits of government, how much does it really cost to run government? These are areas where reforms are seriously needed so that in a transparent way we can know. Yes, the GRA is doing a phenomenal job. It is computerizing, it's modernizing, it is bringing in a lot into the kitty. But where is the distributional justice of those resources going? You know, and I think it's fundamental to speak to the concerns of Prof. That as long as we don't live within our own means, as long as our economy is not as productive as it can be, we are going to have these events just as ceremonies. It's nice to watch. Those of us sitting in air-conditioned studios, nice QTV studios, will talk about it. But the fundamental question remains that the vast majority of our people are struggling. And that, to answer those struggles, we have to reinvent the economic arrangements, not to be entirely dependent on global generosity or largesse, but to depend on our own sweat and our own toil. I mean,
so let me throw down the gauntlet to all of you in turn. If we are to reinvent this so that people don't think, oh, these guys, they sat in the studio and they used fine words and so on, how do we reinvent the current model to the extent where it does impact people in the way that Prof has said it should? I'll come to Prof last on this, but I'll come to you first.
I will begin really with the Nobel Prize winners in economics. 2024, where they studied why some countries prosper and others don't. It was quite interesting. Asimoglu, I think, the Turkish guy, and there was Johnson and Robinson, these guys.
And they were jointly awarded.
It's all in the institutions. We've been saying it for a very long time, but now we are beginning to get the evidence. How do I make institutions work for the many? Our institutions now, they work for the few. The nationalisms that took over independence collapsed, anti-climaxed into a kleptocracy. They're just working for, as you say, the elites and all this sort of thing. How do we turn that around? It all begins with the institutions. That's where the policies would matter. That's where the resources, the money would matter. Otherwise, policies will never yield what I want them to yield because I do not have the right people, the right mechanisms. Putting all the money, it will be wasted.
We can just see inside. We can just see inside the chamber now, and I think very soon they will be asked to. His Excellency the President will come in, and they will be asked to take their seat. And then we will hear, we will observe, and we will listen to the speech. But you know, I've asked my panel here to give His Excellency some tips on what they think he should be saying or doing for it to make a difference. So Almami, I'll come to you next.
Yes, I think Mr. Mboj has really hit the nail on the head. You know, institutions are a very important part of development. Ade, you will know this. Before there was an artificial intelligence talk, there was the artificial person. That is the limited liability corporation.
Yeah, quite.
The Dutch started the whole idea of managing your risk, not putting all your investment in one venture.
Quite.
So it was developed, of course, in the UK, that you started having charter companies chartered by the first Queen Elizabeth and going down. So institutions are the fundamental thing that we need to create the kind of prosperity that can change our dynamics. People talk about this often. Singapore, Mauritius, these countries were blessed with leadership that created the institutions.
Vision.
Yeah.
Which they delivered on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you create an institution, let's say, for example, Singapore Airlines and the Singapore airport, globally has been ranked as one for the last 15 years or so. Right. So institution building is really at the heart of development. Asimuglu and his Nobel laureates have really hit on this point. But people forget also that if you go back a century ago, if you go to the United States, such institutions were built. They had these statutory corporations that gave them their municipal rail system, their road networks. A city like New York, for example, was blessed with a master builder called Robert Moses. Yeah. And they created all these institutions. Mauritius, similarly, that's that's the route they took to encourage price stability, to encourage food security. They decided to have a state trading corporation that would import all the rice, all the flour, all the oil that they need. They will not stop anybody from importing. They have a network island-wide, and they sell at market price with their markup. So it is doable if you have the right institutions in play. So to answer your question, this is where we need to focus. So with the right institutions, the housing problem was solved in Singapore. Singapore, by the way, is half of Gambia's size.
Yeah, quite.
If you take Gambia and divide it into two, half of it is what the size of Singapore
And in case anybody's wondering why we always use Singapore as our flags were raised next to each other at the United Nations on the same day in September 1965.
That's true.
And so we became United Nations members at the same time, on the same day. Yes. And that's one of the reasons why Singapore is always used as the model.
And also they are smaller than us.
And of course, it's smaller.
Jawara used it. Let's forget it. This is not something new from Jawara's time, actually.
Right. So, Prof, what do we do?
I think institutions are very important, ultimately. But it must be underpinned by a philosophy and ideology. Gambia has existed on a capitalist-driven ideology since independence. And there have been some modest gains, improvements in life. But given our context, given our resources, given our population.
Resources or lack of.
Or lack thereof.
Yes, right, yes.
I think it is important for us to rethink the model we have at the moment. I think this model feeds the elites almost exclusively. And if we want a new Gambia, we will have to rethink. We will have to rethink the processes. We will have to rethink the bureaucracy and the institutions that underpin the policy. I think it is fine to have an institution like this or to have a model like this, but it hasn't delivered. Gambia has been independent for over almost 60 years or more.
60 years this year.
And people are getting poorer. I mean, I have spent a lot of time thinking about and writing about these things. And I'm saying, relying on the World Bank for loans or other institutions for props is not going to do it. We have to, as a population, as a people, rethink. And there are thinkers around here. But these guys don't appreciate thinkers.
And is it the case that I mentioned Trump as being one of the kind of reality checks, wake-up call, whatever you want to call
Absolutely.
it? But also many of the European nations, because of pressure from their own populations and their electorate, are reducing the amount of aid that they're giving to countries. This should tell us that we need to rely more on ourselves
Absolutely.
than on kind of outside forces and sources when it comes to resource mobilization.
Absolutely. Just before you come in, I just want to ask Professor Sen something. If we do not begin with institutions, where would you begin? Where do you see the best hope, the brightest window, as it were, for change?
I think, from my perspective, and this is a perspective that is shared by many, is to begin with ideological training. Train the citizens to the point where they can appreciate an alternative. This modern capitalist system hasn't worked for Gambia and many countries in the world. It has worked for others. But I think we must begin with the educational system. The educational system in itself is a major problem. And this is where we must begin to educate, re-educate our citizens, provide new models, an alternative model to this capitalist economy. And then from there, we can begin to talk about institutions, or simultaneously talk about institutions and put them in place. This to me is fine, but it's not working. Gambia is not working.
So let's
I mean, there are improvements here and there, don't get me wrong.
No.
But it's not working.
Okay. Let's throw the cat among the pigeons and mention the Alliance of Sahel States. A couple of weeks ago, Assimi Goïta in Mali mentioned that they're building their own gold refinery for the first time. And I saw his statement, and he was saying that he can't even understand that for decades, a country like Mali had been sending gold out to be refined when they should have just spent a few million in building their own gold refinery and then selling the refined gold. And we see things like this being proposed also in Burkina Faso, in Niger, where, a country that is exporting uranium, Niger is depending on Nigeria for more than half of its electricity, rather than building solar plants to kind of fund. And it's only now that they're thinking about it. And as Prof says, certain models have not worked. Now, these junta-led ones, they've dealt away with the kind of parliamentary system. But if you watch on their TV, on their social media pages, they still have retained all the ministries, all the sort of parastatal, and they sort of, because they all have to come and report every week to the presidents in all these countries, and they seem to be delivering, and they seem to be convincing people that bear with us, we will make a difference in your lives. Is that where we're failing?
For me, I really understand Prof's frustration, and I agree with him that we need to skill our people. We need to retool them. But I'm not so sure.
And the system too.
Yes, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
I think this ideological divide, for me, China has proven that is completely irrelevant to your development aspiration.
Sure.
Some have even described China's peaceful
Even
rise
Singapore.
as state capitalism.
Yeah, quite.
So the whole idea of people getting the right skills in the right number to scale on whether to build a gold refinery or to build a petroleum refinery, this is the work of private enterprise and private initiative. All the technologies that we are so celebrating of these days were built and designed by high school dropouts, university
As we were
dropouts.
saying before we came on air.
Yeah. And now Dangote has the biggest refinery in the world. Nigeria for the last 60 years or so
Quite.
has been importing the...
And many people have gotten rich on exporting and then re-importing the same oil from the...
So this is why I think the public-private partnership model that has worked for Singapore, that has worked for Mauritius, to some extent could be explored for countries like Gambia to be able to deliver on our development concerns, on our development needs. Because capitalism, socialism, or whatever you call it, it has to work for the people.
I mean,
And we have to start thinking for ourselves. We have to be more self-reliant. But most importantly, we must learn to live within our means. You cannot have a proliferation of institutions that deliver absolutely nothing for the people. You know, you cannot be a government of the day and be renting people's apartments as your offices. That is a lack of imagination. So these are some of the things that I think if we sit down and have an honest conversation, sans political coloring or sans ideological coloring, we may be able to find the solutions that the country needs to move forward. Because as a nation, that is what we need to do, to come together and think together. Achebe famously said it, that, you know, the villagers don't converge at the courtyard of the village or the bantaba on the moonlight because they can see the moon from their houses. We come together because we have bonds of solidarity through which we can live dignified lives. We can have the leather worker, we can have the metal worker, but at the right skill level. Because every society needs that. You need the professor, you need the accountant, you need the doctor, but their skill level must be first rate so that their productivity also improves living together. Then, of course, the bureaucracy must also be very competent. I mean, I heard that the Singapore bureaucrats are the highest paid in the world. This I heard from Tony Blair, no less. So institutions are really the starting point of the transformation that we all seek.
And I mentioned my own kind of bugbear because I worked in kind of government transformation in the UK. So since I've been here, one of the biggest frustrations I have is that even though we have a .gov.gm, which is what everybody should have, I would say 99% of people who give me their email address, give me a Gmail. That should not be happening in 2025. And we have a digital comms ministry. They should have kind of standardized all government ministries and agencies to insist that everybody must have. I can't even believe I'm saying this in 2025, that I'm still getting Gmail sent to me saying, send it to me on Gmail. It should not be the case. And the reason I mention this is that we're talking about private, public, private, but government has to create an enabling environment. And if government and government institutions are not showing themselves as being competent and capable, then why would I engage with them? And if they can't even get, sending out, requests for coverage, right, or Gmail instead of using .gov.gm, if they can't even do that, then, if I'm somebody who's meant to interact with them, then I would say, well, you can't even get that right. What else can you not get right? So those are the basics.
I think the challenges that the Gambia faces is a lack of self-identity. Defining ourselves and the process that it takes to deliver the goods and services for the people. Gambia is everywhere, trying to do this, trying to do that. Unless we have a solid image of ourselves, where we are, where we want to go, and what we want to achieve, will be all over the place. Fundamentally, what I'm saying is the capitalist model of development, China has done well, but China and its thinkers have evolved. They've been able to manipulate, they've been able to experiment, they've failed, they've succeeded, and so forth and so on. But Gambia is looking at Singapore, Gambia is looking at Taiwan, Gambia is looking everywhere, and we are not finding ourselves.
Sure.
This is where we must begin. If we fail in the models that we produce ourselves, that would lead to other developments that could ultimately help us do better.
So this crisis of self-identity, let me give a recent example. We had a minister responding to a question where the allegation was thrown at him and the government that Gambia does not have a foreign policy. Now, he gave as an example that we do, that we are non-aligned. And I said, well, if I was in the audience, I would have said, how can you call yourselves non-aligned when you support China as against Taiwan and China's right to Taiwan? You've aligned yourself. Absolutely. That's not a non-alignment. non-alignment would say you recognize China, you recognize Taiwan. And there are other instances where we have sided with one against the other. So, you know, that's a kind of fancy phrase, oh, we're non-aligned. But the reality doesn't stand up to much scrutiny. And Butch?
Of course, non-alignment, Bandung 1955, you will still need to deal with the Cold War. The Cold War is gone, really.
His Excellency has arrived at the chamber. I think we can go to our colleague, Osman Jatta. And it's okay. Okay, and we can hear from inside the chamber. We can hear from inside the chamber. Hopefully we'll hear something.
Where he will deliver the State of the Nation Address 2025. kon mbokk yi fii la ñu tollu jamono ji nag njiiti réew mi dugg na sin comme ni ngeen koy gisee nii dina dem nag ci table bi nga xam ne moom la ñu ko jagleel ndax foofu la muy taxaw gaaral ay kàddu fii ci néegi député yi lu jëmee nag ci liggéey bi nga xam ne nguuram def nañu ko jàpp atum 2024 moo tax nag kilifa yëpp jóg taxaw màggal ko luñ naan standing ovation nga xam ne ñëpp dañuy jóg ba njiiti réew mi jël toogaayam bu boobaa nag ñëpp dinañu delluwaat toog ñu déglu ko ki nga xam ne moom mooy His Excellency président Adama Barrow comme niñ ko aadoo di
presse
gis bu bés ni ki tey jotee mooy dinañu ko déglu te jamono ji na foog naa dañuy ñaan
Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and parliament for the welfare of society and just government of men. We beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this land. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this house assembled. Grant us that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner, to promote thy honor and glory, to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of this country, and of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. Amen.
well now
Communication from the chair.
this is how event at the National Assembly is unfolding. CD dafa mel ni rek
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia,
fu doomi réew mi nekk
Mr. Adama Barrow,
biti réew ci biir réew
my Lord,
jiiti réew mi la ñuy déglu waaye ba léegi nag speaker dafay continuer di wax
the Chief Justice of the Gambia and Justices of the Superior Courts, honorable members, let me recognize also His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, former Vice Presidents of the Republic of the Gambia, former Deputy Speakers of the National Assembly, Honorable Deputy Speaker and all honorable members of this august Assembly, honorable Cabinet Ministers here in present, former members of the National Assembly, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service, Chief of Staff of the Office of the President, regional governors, Lord Mayors and chairpersons of area councils, service chiefs, leaders of political parties, senior government officials, vulnerable religious leaders, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. Honorable members, it is with great honor and privilege that I welcome you to this assembly for the 2025 State of the Nation Address to be delivered by His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Adama Barrow, in accordance with Section 77(1) of the 1997 Constitution and Order 24(1) of our standing orders. His Excellency appears here before this Assembly today to attend and address a sitting of the National Assembly on the condition of the Gambia, the policies of the government, and the administration of the state for the 2025 legislative year. Honorable members, we gathered as a nation to witness a significant milestone in our democratic journey, the President's State of the Nation Address. This occasion stands as one of the most important in our constitutional and parliamentary calendar. It affords the head of state a vital platform to inform the nation through the elected representatives of the current state of public affairs, the administration of the state, the government's policy direction, and our national development priorities. Your Excellency, your presence here today is testament to your continued commitment to constitutional governance, institutional accountability, and inclusive national dialogue. The State of the Nation Address represents a moment of unity and reflection, where the executive and the legislature come together in pursuit of our shared national vision. Therefore, on behalf of both sides of this August Assembly, I extend a warm welcome to Your Excellency. We are deeply honored by your presence, and we eagerly look forward to your address, which will provide an update on the progress made, the challenges faced, and the aspirations that guide our national agenda. Traditionally, this sitting of the Assembly draws wide national interest, attracting Gambians and friends of the Gambia from all walks of life. Honorable members, as we prepare to listen to this year's address, I urge all of us to do so with the seriousness, respect, and sense of responsibility that this solemn occasion demands. Let the debates and deliberations that would follow be guided by reasoned dialogue, respect for differing opinions, and an unwavering focus on the national interest. With those few remarks, honorable members, on behalf of this honorable assembly, I thank you all for your coming. Clerk, may we proceed?
Motion. State of the Nation Address 2025 by His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia.
Honorable members, I now have the singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency Mr. Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, to deliver his address. Your Excellency, please.
Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable members of the National Assembly, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Worship, the Chief Justice of the Gambia, Excellencies, former Vice Presidents, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, senior public officials and service chiefs, party leaders, venerable religious leaders, distinguished personalities, ladies and gentlemen. In accordance with the Constitution of the Gambia, I feel profoundly honored and uniquely privileged to deliver the 2025 State of the Nation Address before this esteemed Assembly. This year holds exceptional significance in view of the 60th anniversary of the Gambia's attainment of political independence, a milestone symbolizing 6 decades of sovereignty and collective progress. This Diamond Jubilee reflects the tenacity and values that characterize our nation's journey over the years. During the period, we have learned that charting a stronger, enduring, and brighter future for a nation comes with difficulties and choices to make. Guided by the Recovery-Focused National Development Plan, YIRWA 2023-2027, we have embarked on a strategic course to foster inclusive and sustainable development. As a blueprint, the plan serves to consolidate our gains and accelerate socio-economic transformation across all sectors. Honorable Speaker, to objectively reflect on the performance of my administration during the 2024 calendar year, it is necessary to acknowledge both our achievements and the challenges that confront us. Importantly, however, our commitment to unity, democratic principles, and progressive policies remain unwavering as we strive to enhance the well-being of every Gambian. In this spirit, I present to this august body a summary of the nation's current state of affairs, highlighting the key accomplishments, ongoing challenges, and our strategic priorities for the future. These features in the themes discussed ahead, and I will begin with our international engagements. Diplomacy and international cooperation. Honorable Speaker, the Gambia continues to strengthen its international presence and diplomatic engagements to advance our national interests, enhance global cooperation, and promote peace and development. We remain committed to expanding bilateral and multilateral partnerships, improving diaspora engagement, and ensuring the protection of Gambian citizens wherever they may be. The Gambia's international presence has been magnified by the successful hosting of the 15th OIC Summit in 2024 and my assuming the chairmanship of the organization. Furthermore, the country's eligibility for the UN Secretary General's Peace Building Fund has been renewed for another 5 years. In addition, we have been successfully re-elected to the Human Rights Council and the African Union Peace and Security Council. In the same year, the Kingdom of Morocco opened its embassy in the country to strengthen bilateral relations and cooperation, while the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire established an honorary consulate here. Additionally, over 30 ambassadors and diplomats presented their credentials, signaling increased international interest in engaging with the Gambia. These developments will continue to position the country as a respected and resourceful member of the international community. Honorable Speaker, we proudly maintain our status as the human rights capital of Africa, hosting the Continental Human Rights Institution. Thus, in October last year, we hosted the 84th ordinary session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, further solidifying our role in regional human rights advocacy. Internationally, the Gambia has steadfastly championed human rights and justice on the global stage. This includes our active involvement in the International Court of Justice on the plight of the Rohingya, the legal struggles of Palestine, and essential climate change actions. Honorable Speaker, as Chairman of the OIC, I express grave concern over the recent escalation of Israel attacks on Iran, resulting in the killing of military and non-military officials. I call for restraint and a return to peace in the region. Dialogue is the ultimate solution to our global concerns, and we must endeavor to pursue it. In January 2025, my government participated in the Universal Periodic Review and presented the country's human rights record before the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. This marked a significant milestone in reinstating our nation's rightful global standing. Legal and judicial matters. The Ministry of Justice made significant strides in 2024 by reinforcing the rule of law, protecting human rights, and ensuring justice for all. Key achievements in this area include the completion and tabling of the revised draft
we seem to have a technical problem there, but we heard His Excellency the President start there. And unusually, they're back. I think we can go back now, and His Excellency the President. Yes, and just very, very quickly, whilst we're trying to get the sound back.
This August Assembly,
oh, we have him again.
That both the Victims Reparation Commission and the Anti-Corruption Commission, established through legislation passed by this Assembly, will commence operations in this legislative year. The criminal divisions secure convictions in numerous cases, while the Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Unit of the Ministry of Justice provided critical legal support and raised public awareness on such matters. The Registrar General's Department has upscaled digitalization efforts and now operates an online marriage registration portal, thus enhancing efficiency and accountability. Despite these successes, challenges remain, particularly in digitalizing our legal processes. We are committed to addressing such gaps through continued reforms, capacity building, and international collaboration. Honorable Speaker, all this reflect my government dedication to fostering a just, transparent, and accountable legal system, and to ensure that the rights of all Gambians are protected and upheld. National security. Honorable Speaker, I submit that we recognize the remarkable transformation of our security and armed forces. Today, they proudly exhibit a respectable degree of professionalism and preparedness, hence honoring their duty to safeguard our independence and territorial integrity. The delegation of our citizens in uniform echoes the resilient spirit of our people. Their commitment to peace and security continues to reinforce national security and safeguard public order. Progressively, the government is strengthening internal security, modernizing our national identity card management and national security infrastructure. The digitalization of our national documents is in progress, and we will soon replace the concession contract for the national ID system. The ID cards will be integrated with the electronic civil registration and vital statistics, passport and other identification databases to create a unified digital ID system that is locally designed, built, operated and managed by our services. This initiative will expand our revenue base, improve national security, enhance service delivery and ensure knowledge transfer and ownership. Honourable Speaker, in collaboration with the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Interior is reviewing the Motor Traffic Act to introduce enforcement. A new highway patrol unit is already in operation to enhance road safety. In addition, modern surveillance equipment worth $38 million is secured from the German government has been installed in strategic locations to reinforce crime prevention. Also, the West African Police Information System is in use to digitize paper-based police records for easier access, sharing, and utilization. Mr. Speaker, while our law enforcement agencies have intensified crime prevention, challenges persist with irregular migration, border security, drug trafficking, and other offenses. I call on the general public to support the security services in their security intelligence gathering, operations, investigation, and prosecution of criminals. Honourable Speaker, a draft Gambia Immigration Department Bill 2023 to enhance border control and management has been submitted for Cabinet review. The proposal aims to update the 1965 Immigration Act and align it with current migration governance procedures. Modern border posts are fully operational at Amdalai, Ker Ayub, and Jiboro, and plans are afoot to build one more on the Soma-Siliti border. Although the Immigration Department and law enforcement agencies have increased patrols and surveillance, they need to deploy modern security technology and intelligence sharing mechanism for improved efficiency. To show the magnitude of the fight against drug abuse and illicit drug trafficking, our drug law enforcement agency recorded over 1,000 cases in 2024 and secured 126 convictions. Honourable Speaker, our resolve to safeguard our territorial integrity is evidenced by the improvement of our soldiers' welfare through their revised terms and conditions of service. The increased provision of modern patrol boats and artillery tanks, the logistical support to enhance
We will try and go back and get that feed. We seem to be having occasional problems with the audio feed from the National Assembly. We will go back, but it's been quite interesting because so far, His Excellency the President has kind of taken a slightly different course in terms of what he's mentioned as priorities. Before, he would always start with finance and economic affairs, and they go on to agriculture. But he started with a kind of foreign policy, and that was quite interesting because the discussion we were having, would he touch on some of these things? You know, the Israel-Iran war, obviously these things matter, and of course he has the chairmanship of the OIC, and so we did think that at some point he would mention it, but for me I was quite surprised that he mentioned that, and I had on a list here Last time he was 17th on the things that he listed, and yet he started with it as number one. So that tells you that obviously this is something that is at the forefront of everybody's minds. If you have internet access, you cannot fail to be bombarded with what is happening around the world. And so it would have been unusual if he hadn't mentioned it, but I was surprised that that was what he started with. Gentlemen, before we try and get back the feed, if I could come to you quickly, Mr. Mboch, and then I'll come to the other guests whilst we're trying to get the audio feedback. So viewers, do bear with us.
Absolutely. You know, in the beginning I said that I wonder would he deviate from his normal familiar ways of delivering things and the way he arranges things, the formatting. So it will be quite interesting why this. Perhaps we will get the proper perspective at the end of the speech. Perhaps one can suggest one or two ideas. Why this time did he begin with foreign policy? That's quite interesting there. So yes, so we expect him to say some of these things. He would, of course, tell us all the achievements. That's just part of the deal. But still, there are achievements. It doesn't mean that that's all. That summarizes, as it were, the whole of his rule, as it were. There are other areas, and we'll see what he will say. And quite interestingly, in the Palestine, in Israel affair, he called for peace, but there was no condemnation. That's a smart move. I suppose that's what non-alignment means in such circumstances.
Yes, he proposed that there should be dialogue because, of course, we all know that human beings over the years and decades and centuries, we fight wars, and then dialogue is what brings the war to an end. Almami, very quickly, from what we've heard so far, before we try and get the audio feedback.
Like they say, so far so good. And I think, we were really on the money because this is the global concern and priority. And also the tone, for me, is very right. It's pitched at the right level because when it comes to global affairs, it's very important.
I think we can go back to the audio feed from the National Assembly, but viewers, once again, thank you for bearing with us, and we'll try and get back the audio feed.
Despite the strong revenue performance in 2024, the overall deficit, including grants, was $6.7 billion, equal to 4.7% of GDP. In parallel, as of December 2024, the national debt to GDP ratio declined to 71.8% from 75.7% in 2023. This is against the 70% debt sustainability threshold. The economic outlook for 2025 and beyond shows even better prospects, with a projected growth rate of 5.9% in 2025, and inflation falling to 9.6% by end 2025 from 17.3% in 2023. Additionally, my government has adopted measures to stabilize basic commodity prices, to lower the cost of living, maintaining a market-driven exchange rate, and implement climate-sensitive policies for a sustainable future. Honorable Speaker, our partners and the Gambian diaspora continue to contribute meaningfully to our national progress. Their support fuels our development endeavors and underscores our collective resilience and enterprise. To accompany these, public financial management reforms remain central to our governance agenda of building a more resilient, competitive, and sustainable economy that would uplift the lives of all Gambians. The revised 2014 Public Finance Act and the Public Procurement Regulations have modernized our financial oversight framework, strengthen efficiency and transparency in public procurement processes, and ensure accountability in financial resource management. The State-Owned Enterprise Commission, now active, recently signed a performance contract with NAWEC, further enhancing fiscal discipline and governance across state institutions. Honourable members, while economic growth has remained steady, inflation and the rising cost of living continue to impact household incomes. In response, the government has implemented a salary review for civil servants and social protection programs to alleviate the suffering of low-income earners. Transport and infrastructure development. We are laying the foundation for a stronger, more competitive and prosperous Gambia by building and developing our roads, ports, public transport and the aviation sector. We maintain that infrastructure is a key driver of economic growth and national connectivity. It facilitates mobility, trade and services, thereby fostering prosperity and improving the quality of life for Gambians. Already, we have made significant progress in both urban and rural road development. In 2024, we completed Phase 1 and Phase 2 of 22-kilometer OIC highway and launched Phase 3 as part of the historic Diamond Jubilee celebration. This attractive infrastructure has transformed the face of urban Gambia forever. By the end of the third quarter of 2025, we expect to complete the OIC 50-kilometer urban roads, the Kiang West Roads, and the Nyomi Hakalang Road. Hopefully, a significant portion of the 365-kilometer roads nationwide will be completed by the end of the year. The consensus contract with Albrak Company Limited became effective in February 2025 with the taking over of the port terminal by Alport. This is a joint venture between the Gambia Port Authority, representing the government, and Albrak. Alport Banjul will expand and eventually move its operations to Sanya after completion of the deep sea port terminal construction due to start this year. As part of re-establishing the 2 ferries in service, we await delivery of 2 new ferries. Private ferry services operated by Nekma Ferry Company will also commence soon on the Banjul-Bara route. This initiative will guarantee reliable, safe and affordable ferry services on this route. Mr. Speaker, as part of efforts to decentralize governance, my government has started the infrastructural work needed to provide a new governor's residence and office complex in the Upper River region, URR. We have a similar plan for the Lower River region, LRR, and the project is due for completion early next year. On air transportation, the Gambia International Airlines recorded a net profit of $14.8 million in 2024. This is its first profitable year in many years. The airline now works with Jivan Investment Solution and Holdings to reintroduce a Gambian national airline and thereby enhance air access to destination Gambia. Energy, Honorable Speaker. The energy sector remains central to our national development objectives for economic growth, industrialization, social modernization, and progress. We have made significant progress in expanding electricity access nationwide. Recent assessments indicate that by end 2025, 90% of Gambians will have access to electricity. In 2024, the country unveiled the first ever utility large-scale solar park of 23 megawatts in Jambur. Furthermore, a tender is underway for an extra 50 megawatt solar plant in Jara Sona. It can be scaled up to 150 megawatts renewable energy. To provide additional support towards universal electricity access, my administration introduced a subsidy program and reduced the cost of electricity meter from $8,500 to $500 within the project covered areas. These facilitated 72,000 new household connections by December 2024. The Cabinet has also approved the splitting of NAWEC into separate water and electricity companies. The strategy is to improve service delivery, ensure accountability, and enhance operation focus. Petroleum, Mr. Speaker, to regulate the growing mining and mineral sector, the Ministry of Petroleum, Energy and Mines validated quarry regulations in August 2024 and reviewed the Mines and Quarries Act 2005 to align them with new industry developments and best practices. My government will continue prioritizing investments in electricity generation, renewable energy, petroleum exploration, and mineral resource management to ensure sustainable energy security for all Gambians. Mr. Speaker, the search for oil and gas continues. A total of 5 wells were test drilled in the Gambia, 2 of them under my administration. In a partnership of FAR and Petronas, the 2 drilled during my tenure are named Samo 1 well drilled in 2018 and Bambo 1 well drilled in 2021. The drill wells under my administration cost $100 million, although the results from both wells are very promising and positive. No discovery was made. The companies exited the Gambia's license after fulfilling their obligations, which were primarily to drill the wells. In 2019, BP was granted the A1 license. They paid the government a $10 million signature bonus and $30 million penalty for existing without fulfilling their license commitment. It was a result of their policy shift from oil and gas exploration to renewable energy that BP exited the Gambia at the outbreak of the COVID-19 epidemic. For the time being, we are building the necessary institutional and legislative foundation to attract investors in oil and gas exploration in our shores. Trade, industry, and employment. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment continues to drive policies and initiatives to strengthen trade, foster private sector development, and create employment opportunities. In this regard, the Gambia Trade Logistics Charter was officially launched in November 2024 to facilitate trade and improve efficiency at various locations. Following this, the Trade Logistics Council was inaugurated on 28 January 2025 to oversee and monitor the implementation of the Charter. With the support of the ECOWAS, a modern Lumo market has been constructed in Wellingaraba, LRR, to enhance cross-border trade. This initiative is part of the Lumo Modernization Program, which aims to build modern market infrastructure to facilitate domestic and regional trade. Honorable Speaker, the Trans-Gambia Corridor Special Economic Zone project is progressing well as part of the wider Prera-Dakar-Abuja-Lagos multimodal corridor. The study of this project was done with support from the African Development Bank and ECOWAS. The National Industrial Policy and the GAIPA Act 2015 are now being updated. The objectives are to support industrialization initiatives, attract investment, modernize our industrial ecosystem, and promote value-added production to enable private sector growth and expand job creation. To enhance employment opportunities abroad, the government continues to work closely with our bilateral partners in Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Spain, and cruise ship liners to expand our placement quotas while ensuring that our young people have safe and productive employment abroad.
And there we had, sorry for another interruption there, but he touched on a very important one. I think we can go back now.
Agriculture and food security. Madam Speaker, agriculture provides livelihoods for the majority of Gambians and plays a crucial role in attaining employment and rural development. As outlined in the Gambia Agricultural Transformation Program 2020-2030, the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Security is focusing on increasing rice yields from 2 to 4 metric tons per hectare, and maize from 2 to 3 metric tons per hectare. The 2024 cropping season marks significant improvements in agricultural input support for farmers. We registered increases in the provision of fertilizer and certified seeds and increased matching grants for the farmers and youths. To explain further, my administration procured 28,000 metric tons of fertilizer and reduced the price from $2,500 per bag to $1,150 per bag of 50 kilo and $1,100 per bag of 50 kilo bag in the last 2 farming seasons, respectively. In addition to this, through various agricultural projects, the government distributed 8,697 metric tons of fertilizer, over 1,000 metric tons of certified rice seeds, 300 metric tons of certified maize seeds, and 140,000 liters of herbicides to farmers across the country free of charge. Livestock, Mr. Speaker, on livestock production, significant investments was realized in the past year, with about 4,000 small ruminant fattening and breeding schemes implemented nationwide. The Ministry of Agriculture also handed over 5 abattoirs, 5 livestock markets, 7 meat stalls, a mini dairy with 2 collection centers and pasture equipment. We persist in promoting mechanized and land preparation for upland and lowland farming by procuring the required machines. 180 tractors and 20 retrovator boats have been procured for deployment during the 2025-2026 cropping season.
We seem to be having a day of audio interruptions, but I think this one is quite brief, and I think we can go back. His Excellency the President.
Irrigation and mechanization of cereal harvesting, easy access to agricultural financing or credit margin grants. By increasing access to finance, mechanization value chain enhancement, and irrigation expansion, we are ensuring that agriculture is a sustainable and profitable sector that boosts the quality of life here, support the higher employment rate, and enhances livelihoods in rural communities. Fisheries, Honorable Speaker. The fisheries sector is another important source of revenue for the government and food for the population. In 2024, revenue collected from fishing licenses, fines, landing fees, and permits exceeded $142 million, with an additional outstanding $88 million due for collection. To address the primary challenges in the fisheries sector, my administration is conducting a comprehensive review of the Fisheries and Aquaculture Regulations, funded by Food and Agriculture Organization. The review will modernize fisheries laws, strengthen enforcement, and combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Through the European Union Sector Support Programme, fisheries co-management is being expanded in the North Bank region, NBR, to support 21 oyster harvesting communities. This is to ensure sustainable management of oyster resources and greater economic improvement for coastal communities. Under the same program, 2 additional fish landing platforms are being constructed in Katong and Sanya. To enhance local fishing and support rural fishing communities, the government distributed 20 well-equipped fishing boats in January 2025. Honorable Speaker, we are bent on optimizing opportunities in the fisheries sector through laws, expanded programs, improved aquaculture infrastructure, and strengthen transboundary water cooperation, environment, and climate change. Honorable Speaker, the government remains steadfast in protecting the environment, strengthening climate resilience, and ensuring sustainable natural resource management. Through the robust policy reforms, enhanced disaster preparedness, and expanded conservation programs, we will continue to build a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable society as enshrined in the Banjul Declaration in 1977. To strengthen governance in environmental management, we are advancing key legislative reforms for environmental protection. This includes carbon trading and waste management frameworks. To strengthen all this, in 2024, designated officials were deployed to monitor environmental violations and ensure compliance. Reforestation and biodiversity. The government continues to prioritize reforestation and biodiversity conservation to enhance climate resilience and safeguard natural habitats. Last year, 29 community forests covering an area of 2,591 hectares were brought under government protection. Through the UNESCO network of biosphere reserves, the Gambia's first designated biosphere reserve, the Nyomi Biosphere Reserve, was launched in January 2025. It covers over 196,665 hectares, along with the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Kunta Kinte Island. We are reinforcing the Gambia's global conservation efforts. Honorable Speaker, the impact of floods, deforestation, and environmental degradation continues to threaten food security and livelihoods. Although the National Disaster Risk Management Policy 2024-2033 and sustainable environmental programs are key to mitigating these risks, my administration will pay more attention to constructing better climate resilience infrastructure. Tourism, Honorable Speaker. The tourism sector remains a key catalyst of the Gambia's economic growth, generating employment, foreign exchange earnings, and business opportunities. As a result, my government is resolute in expanding and diversifying the sector through strategic partnerships, infrastructure development, cultural promotion, and capacity building. In 2024, we recorded 227,000 tourist arrivals, representing a 10% increase compared to 2023. This growth reflects marketing efforts, improved international connectivity, and strategic partnerships. These efforts have led to new flights to the Gambia, including those from Scandinavia and Nigeria. The projection for 2025 is a further increase in the number of visitors, and we are on track towards achieving the RFNDP target of 336,787 arrivals by air. Arts and culture. Mr. Speaker, to maintain and build on our competitiveness, attraction and cultural preservation efforts, we have introduced the Janjambure Bicentenary and Kankuram festivals and review the Roots Homecoming and Futampan festivities. In addition to internationalizing Gambian cookery and river cruising, furthermore, we will give more attention to bird watching and wildlife parks. With support from the World Bank, we are determined to complete the eco-tourist resorts and hunting camps nationwide. Honorable Speaker, for the first time, the Gambia has conducted a comprehensive demand and destination assessment of all major tourist sites. 10 key sites have been prioritized for investment. Regarding our national heritage, the Gambia government has submitted the UNESCO Convention of 1954 on the protection of heritage in times of armed and thus solidifying the government's commitment to protecting and preserving our national heritage. Mr. Speaker, we also launched the report of the Gambia's Intangible Cultural Heritage, ICH, landscape, and the National ICH Register in November 2024, with support from the Heritage Management Organization. With the Register of Intangible Cultural Heritage, the tourism sector stands on the edge of having an element of the Gambian heritage nominated for inscription into the UNESCO site safeguarding list of ICH. This could be a remarkable step towards protecting and valorizing the Gambian heritage. Honorable Speaker, my administration is evaluating both the human resource and equipment capabilities for the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute, GTHI. Through the support of the World Bank, to this end, GTHI is expanding student accommodation and providing its students with hands-on training experiences. Besides this, in alignment with market demands, a new curriculum will be developed to GTHI to take care of emerging trends in tourism. Communication and digital economy. Mr. Speaker, the digital economy has become a key driver of national development. It creates employment, improves service delivery, and enhances economic opportunities. So far, the expansion of mobile broadband connectivity has exceeded 60%, and it is steadily progressing towards the national target of 85%. The telecommunications sector contributed 22% of the total tax revenue collected in 2024. The rollout of the Gambia's second subsea cable is ongoing, and it is due for completion in 2026. This initiative will increase bandwidth availability and provide redundancy to the four subsea cable, thus ensuring reliable internet connectivity across the country. Notwithstanding the expanded and ongoing general infrastructure development in various areas of development, like transport efficiency and urban social services, the demand for reliable power, as well as bandwidth and digital access, remains high. The rollout of the second subsea cable and the digital infrastructure project are expected to address these challenges. The National Digital Addressing Initiative reported here before has been completed in Banjul and Kanifing municipality, and it is being rolled out in the West Coast region. As an other initiative to strengthen cybersecurity and digital protection, my government introduced a child and vulnerable groups online protection policy and developed a 2024 cybercrime bill. Honorable Speaker, the restructuring of GAMTEL, GAMCEL, and GAMPOS remain a high priority for my government. In this respect, the World Bank has committed $6.4 million US for GAMCEL social plan. This will provide compensation packages for over 700 affected members of staff. It also includes other areas of support for the employees. Efforts are underway to clear a combined tax liability of $787 million owed by GAMTEL and GAMCEL. Addressing these liabilities is necessary to restore the financial stability and market competitiveness of the companies. The Gambia Postal Service Corporation, on the other hand, is digitizing its activities to improve its operational efficiency and financial performance. The corporation is working on deploying a SIM-skin mobile wallet technology that will enable users to send and receive money without using the internet. This technology will enhance financial inclusion, especially for the rural population. With these initiatives, we will continue to pursue an inclusive and technology-driven economy that benefits all Gambians. Media and broadcasting. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Information plays the vital role of ensuring transparency, public engagement, and access to timely and accurate information to enhance public understanding of government policies and programs. The Ministry launched several key communication initiatives last year. Among them is the Mansakunda Ministerial Town Hall, a bi-weekly public engagement program that creates direct interaction between the public and government ministries. For the purpose of enhancing transparency and access to information, the Ministry, in partnership with Freedom House and other stakeholders, developed and validated the Consolidated Access to Information ATI implementation roadmap in 2024. The roadmap outlines roles, responsibilities, and timeline for full enforcement of the ATI Act. This year, the government will pursue the amendment of the GRTS Act and expand the digital terrestrial television towards full transition from analog to digital broadcasting. I also urge this August Assembly that the government remains fully committed to strengthening press freedom, expanding access to government information, and modernizing public broadcasting services, infrastructure, and human capital development. In pursuit of sustainable development on a grand scale, our administration prioritizes infrastructural development that guarantees equitable access to education, healthcare, universal access to electricity, and safe, reliable transportation for our people. This far, we have paved about 910 kilometers of road and expanded our power grid, aiming to ensure that electricity reaches every Gambian home by the end of 2025. These infrastructure advancements are complemented by impressive progress in education, as seen in our revamped schools and increasing enrollment rates. Honorable Speaker, it is worth noting that 424 new schools have been built, accompanied by 6,400 new classrooms. Those providing learning space to accommodate the increasing number of Gambian children. Consequently, our education sector has experienced significant advances, with gross enrollment rates rising to 102.8% at the lower basic level, 77.6% at the upper basic level, 55.9% at the secondary education level. The statistics highlights our steadfast dedication to removing obstacles, enhancing access to quality education, and fostering opportunities for every Gambian child to excel. At the upper level of our training and skills development program, during the year under review, my government made significant progress in expanding higher education infrastructure to meet the growing demand for tertiary education and skills training. The University of the Gambia schools, Faraba Banta faculties, and the campus are providing a conducive learning environment for students. I am glad to report that it is attracting students from the regions as education tourism. Construction work of the University of Science and Technology campus in Brikama and a multipurpose technical and vocational education and training Tibet Center in Wasu is ongoing. These interventions are aimed at expanding technical and engineering education in the Gambia. The transformation of Gambia College into the University of Education and the Management Development Institute into the Civil Service University is expected to improve teacher training programs, public service delivery, and governance, respectively. Further still, my government is establishing specialized training centers of excellence to equip the youth with practical expertise in agriculture, in SAPU, and Fisheries Center of Excellence in Tujereng to enhance their employment and employability. Through sustained investment, policy reforms, and innovative education programs, we will continue to empower Gambian students and our youth with the knowledge and skills they need to compete and succeed. Healthcare. Honorable Speaker, the government will continue to build a resilient and inclusive healthcare system that ensures quality care for all Gambians. Our investment in Farato General Hospital, the rollout of the National Health Insurance Scheme to 13 public health facilities nationwide is reducing financial barriers to healthcare. The construction of the National Emergency Treatment, Blood Transfusion, Diagnostics and Imaging Centers, as well as the Food and Drug Quality Control Laboratory around the Bruceby roundabout is nearing completion. These, together with the ongoing construction of 6 new health facilities in various parts of the country and the expansion and refurbishment of both Birkamamba Health Center and Biam Hospital, will certainly ensure improved healthcare outcomes. Meanwhile, 5 X-ray machines have been installed and in use in our regional hospitals. 11 laboratories are now solar-powered, and 1,100 household latrines have been constructed across the country to improve sanitation and hygiene. We are also building a new warehouse for drugs and a medical supply storage to improve the availability and distribution of essential medicines. To further enhance reliable transportation and service delivery, particularly in the rural area, we have procured 32 new ambulances, 7 trucks, and 61 motorbikes to replace the aging fleets of vehicles and improve emergency response time. Over the years, there have been significant improvements in healthcare infrastructure development, medical equipment provision, and national health insurance coverage. Nonetheless, access to specialized care and the shortage of healthcare personnel remain areas for further investment. All our healthcare reforms are meant to build a resilient and inclusive healthcare system that guarantees quality care for all Gambians. To realize this, I urge the health sector to reform our drug chain management and regulation for ready availability of reliable and safer quality drugs. On employment and poverty reduction, Honorable Speaker, equally important is our resolve to reduce the incidence of unemployment and poverty. Initiatives such as the recently launched Skills Innovation and Entrepreneurship SIE Fund, with an initial allocation of $396 million, the Women Enterprise Fund and the GAIPA Agriculture Investment Initiative now play a pivotal function in empowering our youth and women by providing them with skills and greater opportunities to prosper. We acknowledge the challenges before us, particularly those facing the youth seeking opportunities abroad. We assure them that pathways to success are continually being created for them at home through safe and official migration pathways. Gender, children, and social welfare. Honorable Speaker, the empowerment of women, protection of children, and social welfare are essential for a prosperous society. Through policies, economic programs, and social protection initiatives, we are ensuring that women, children, persons with disabilities, and vulnerable communities have equal opportunities and support systems to improve their lives. We will continue to make significant strides in promoting gender equality and women empowerment. In the area of gender-based violence, child protection, and people living with disabilities continue to be a priority for my government. But this required more awareness, legal enforcement, and victim support systems. To succeed, in November 2024, the National Gender Policy 2025-2034 and Action Plan 2025-2030 were launched. The policy serves as the framework for coordinating and harmonizing gender mainstreaming efforts across the country. Because women's participation in economic activities is vital for national development, my administration has expanded financial inclusion and access to resources for female entrepreneurs. Between June and December 2024, for example, the sum of $15.88 million was disbursed by the Women Enterprise Fund to support 138 women groups across the country. 26.3% of the amount disbursed was successfully recovered during the period. Honorable Speaker, the government continues to implement critical interventions to combat malnutrition, promote food security, and enhance social welfare. The National Social Protection Act 2024, for instance, has established a centralized social protection fund to finance initiatives across the 5 areas of the National Social Protection Policy 2015-2025. This has been operationalized in the 2025 budget and will be used to expand the government-funded initiative of mainstreaming social assistance to vulnerable households through the Family Strengthening Program. The program supports vulnerable persons, such as orphans, the elderly, female-headed households, and people living with disabilities. In 2024, under the Gambia Resilience, Inclusion, Skills, and Equity Rise project, $31 million was allocated to the NAFA Cash Transfer Program. The program will add 20,000 more beneficiaries to the existing 16,699 beneficiaries. On disability support, $500,000 was allocated to the National Disability Advisory Council. Institutional support of $1 million was also provided to the Gambia Federation of the Disabled and 10 organizations of persons with disabilities to support disability programming in government and civil society. There will be an additional 3,000 beneficiaries to the existing 2,011 individuals, raising the beneficiaries to 5,011 persons. The program continues to progress by the year. Honorable Speaker, it is gratifying to mention that the Gambia is now one of the first countries to complete a census approach social registry on the continent. Consequently, the National Social Protection Agency is transforming social assistance in the country through a data-driven approach to target potential beneficiaries. More than 10 programs across MDAs, UN agencies, and NGOs have utilized the data to support individuals and households. The government is building the structures to ensure that we leave no one behind. youth welfare. Mr. Speaker, my government will continue investing in youth advancement so that young people can participate maximally in national development and experience a vibrant ecosystem that caters for their development needs. In August 2023, I launched the pilot phase of the National Youth Service graduate program implemented in collaboration with the University of the Gambia. The program equips and prepares young university graduates for the job market. Today, I am pleased to announce that so far, 88 youths have completed their national service program. While the NYSS will maintain recruiting young people for the apprenticeship training program, the Gambia Songhai Initiative will equally continue training young persons on integrated farming systems with less environmental impact. Alongside these developments, a national youth service for university graduates has commenced, with 100 UTG students placed in various institutions as part of their civic responsibility to the nation. 200 senior school graduates are also undergoing a 2-year technical and vocational education and training, fully funded by the government. Other ongoing training plans are in place to make this national service mandatory. On entrepreneurship training and access to startup grants and loans for young people, NEDI has over 1,000 young people, among who are backway returnees. Some of the trainees were provided with grants to set up or scale up their businesses. In a similar development, NEDI has opened 2 business formalization centers, one in Sona to serve the North Bank and Lower River regions, and other in Basse to serve the Central and Upper River regions. This year, NEDI will maintain direct support to about 50 young entrepreneurs through business grants and loans. Sports. To put it briefly, it is reassuring that our athletes are keenly participating in various international competitions and are doing well in many respects. On infrastructure development, the Ministry of Youth and Sport recently opened the Farafenye Youth Center after a major rehabilitation exercise. In addition, the Serekunda Mboyo field is being transformed into a standard mini stadium to host various sporting activities. Our determination to provide more facilities around the country has led to ongoing discussions to build a second national stadium in Lamin. In the interim, the upgrading of the Independence Stadium to meet CAF standards is in its final phase. The remaining works are to do with tracks and around the main ball. Mr. Speaker, on 21st January of this year, the Gambia successfully hosted the Interregional African Ministerial Meeting on Anti-Doping in Sport. That significant event brought together ministers, experts, and key stakeholders from across Africa and international organizations to discuss effective strategies to combat doping, ensure fairness, and protect the integrity of athletes. Hosting such a high-level political platform demonstrates my government's readiness to lead this agenda. Our position is grounded in the ethical values of sports and our commitment to strengthening partnerships and networking with bilateral and multilateral bodies. On the legislative framework, on the legislative front, the National Sport Policy 2024-2034 has been adopted to enhance sport governance and athletics development. The Ministry has also formulated the Gambia's new sports bill and youth bill and will amend the PIA, NYSS and NEDI Act. The bills will be submitted to the National Assembly for better regulations of the sport and youth sector and for better performance. Lands and regional administration. Mr. Speaker, land governance and local administration remain critical to national development and social stability. For the first time in the Gambia's history, my government is developing a national land policy under the West African Coastal Area WACA project. A key component of this policy is the establishment of a digital land information system that will integrate specific parcel data with ownership records. The objective is to ascertain secure land tenure and simplify land ownership procedures. In a related development, a new real estate regulation is being designed to address challenges such as unclear property ownership, unregulated land sales, fraudulent transactions, and weak enforcement of property laws leading to disputes. I am optimistic that the work on the first draft of the real estate regulation will be completed this year. That aside, a multi-sectoral task force was established on 4 July 2024 to investigate illegal land transactions and violations in government layouts, revised land, wetland, and along the Abuko bypass road corridor. We look forward to the report to guarantee transparency in land governance. As we strive to address housing challenges and improve living standards, my administration remains steadfast in promoting transparency, land governance, and strengthening local government structures through fair and transparent initiatives. Public service management. Mr. Speaker, a well-functioning civil service is fundamental to national development. Hence, my government is working diligently to ascertain that the public sector operates efficiently, delivers quality services, and supports national growth. As part of the Civil Service Reform Program 2018, the administration has prioritized efficiency and effectiveness in the public sector. Consequently, last year, the government conducted a comprehensive salary and allowance review for government employees. This led to a significant pay rise for all civil servants in government effective January 2025. Among other issues, the review was to make sure that salaries keep pace with inflation and the rising cost of living, to strengthen payroll integrity and workforce management for accountability and financial prudence in government institutions. Several payroll integrity measures have been introduced. One of them is the successful staff audit for the entire civil service conducted to identify and stop wrongful salary payments. This aside, payroll-based electronic time attendance machines are being installed to prevent absence at work and unlawful salary payments. Salaries of absentee employees have been stopped, and relevant financial institutions asked to return all wrongful payments to government. Honorable Speaker, my administration is working hard to maintain a professional, efficient, accountable, and motivated civil service that upholds integrity and delivers quality services. We recognize the need for further stabilizing measures to elevate the welfare of the hard-working personnel in the public sector, and will pursue this with vigor. Partnerships. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the invaluable role of bilateral and multilateral institutions, donor agencies, foreign governments, and development partners in advancing our national agenda. On behalf of the Gambian people, I extend our deepest gratitude to all of them. The diaspora Gambians, remittances and investments significantly contribute to the country's economic stability and growth. They have definitely reinforced their position as an integral part of our socio-economic progress, and we thank them. The Gambia remains committed to maintaining these partnerships as we work towards sustainable and inclusive national development. So, with deep appreciation, I extend a renewed hand of collaboration to all our development partners. Concluding remarks, Honorable Speaker, Honorable National Assembly members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my address has shed light on the journey we have collectively embarked upon for reflection, inspiration, and redelegation to our dear nation. It borders on various development dimensions, ranging from our ever-growing international engagements and economic growth to our resounding governance reforms. The imposing new road infrastructure across the country and other numerous life-changing social welfare enhancement initiatives, for instance, demonstrate that the Gambia is on a far-reaching progressive path. This has been made possible through our national development plans, with the objectives and strategies of the current National Development Plan, YIRWA, paving the way for the realization of our national vision. Honorable National Assembly members, my government has exhibited, through concrete action, the political will to realize our development policies and programs. National plans and programs, however, require national execution for national results. Our citizens and sectors have a role to play for everyone to reap the benefits. We need our development partners to complement our efforts, but the transformation of our communities and progress of the nation are principally our responsibility. There is no magic formula for national development. In unity lies our strength and success. Conversely, this unity exposes us to obstacles and troubles. During our Diamond Jubilee celebration, my government re-echoed its calls for solidarity because our defense, our survival, and advancement depend on it. We cannot change our land area, but we can harness and transform social, economic, and environmental factors for us to evolve out of poverty and underdevelopment. Our degree of success depends on how closely and productively we work and how determined we are to translate our vision into tangible results. Together, we must look far beyond the present to scale up industrial production, attract massive investment, and step out of the usual to innovate and take a giant leap into the future. To succeed, we must aim much higher, act much faster, and act together. With my government's current political will and enthusiasm to work, coupled with the willingness of our development partners to support us, and the huge potential of our citizens, our capacity to fast-track the execution of our development agenda is enormous. As a developing country, transforming its institutions to sustain democracy, we have demonstrated our ability to engage in peaceful politics, despite our divergent views. The spirit is that when the interest of the country is at stake, we must always stand together. Distinguished members, our international standing and ranking indicates a keener international focus on the country. My administration is strongly determined, therefore, to make the Gambia a shining example of a flourishing small state on the African continent. To this end, I call upon all Gambians to remain steadfast in our collective mission to build a better nation. Let us work together across all odds and social divides to initiate success, embrace inclusivity, and nurture the youth. I urge further that we safeguard our democracy, uphold our values, and protect the dignity of all Gambians. The Gambia now stands out as a land of optimism, resilience, and opportunity. As we move forward, my government will focus devotedly on policies and programs that will lead to economic self-sufficiency and rapid development. The state of the infrastructure has the potential to sustain this. With tolerance, social inclusion, sustainable development, and fortitude, we will surely succeed in building a prosperous Gambia for all. I express sincere gratitude to the security forces, including ECOMIC, for reaching out to the people, in addition to executing their routine work. I equally thank all public servants, the private sector, civil society organizations, and all public institutions for your cooperation and service to the nation. Sincerely, I salute our women and youth for their positive involvement in building a peaceful and prosperous Gambia. To all the vulnerable members of our society, I reaffirm our unwavering commitment to your empowerment and encourage you to stand and be seen and heard. Given the need to recognize the basic rights of these minority groups as Gambian citizens, I advise that we allow them more space to participate in all social, economic, and political processes. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this august assembly, I thank you sincerely for your cooperation over the years. Together with the judiciary, I advocate that we collaborate more closely in the interest of the people we collectively and passionately seek to serve. I urge this august body further to rise above party politics and put the Gambia first. We are accountable to the people who put their trust in us to manage the affairs of the nation. The institutions through which we serve them define our various mandates. Thus, I plead that we aim higher to advance our governance processes, administration, and monitoring strategies. With faith, perseverance, and a shared vision, we will successfully drive the Gambia forward into a future of prosperity and peace. I invite all Gambians, partners and friends to join us in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thankful to every citizen and resident in the country for the peace and stability we enjoy. Finally, I thank everyone present for your attendance and attention. May God continue to bless the Gambia and bless us all. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Honorable members, any seconder to the motion? Honorable Member for Kantora and Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. Honorable Speaker, I rise to second the motion being moved by His Excellency the President. And also in the same vein, to thank him equally for the fulfillment of Section 77 of our Constitution, and to assure the general public that the statement delivered here today is a clear testament that the Gambia is in the right trajectory, both in development and in good governance. Therefore, we will stand resolute to stand by His Excellency with the campaign slogan, His Excellency Putambaro for continuity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Kantora and Majority Leader. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that this August Assembly do consider the motion on the State of the Nation Address 2025 delivered by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. Honorable members, the consideration and debate proper on the motion will be adjourned until Monday, 23rd June 2025, to allow honorable members ample time to study and reflect on the contents of the address. On that day, honorable members, the Vice President and Cabinet Ministers are expected to be present to witness and participate in the debate on the State of the Nation address. Before adjourning, honorable members, permit me, on behalf of both sides of this August Assembly, and indeed on my own behalf, to extend our sincere appreciation to His Excellency, the President of the Republic, for his well-delivered State of the Nation address. Indeed, while it is a constitutional duty, it is one that His Excellency has once again fulfilled with grace, clarity, and candor. The address has provided a comprehensive overview of the condition of the Gambia, the policies of government, and the administration of the state as stipulated under this Constitution. It has also offered us a timely opportunity to reflect deeply on the progress we have made, the challenges we continue to face, and the urgent need to foster national unity, peace, and stability, all essential pillars for achieving our national development goals and aspirations. As elected representatives of the people, we are entrusted with the solemn responsibility to ensure that the policies and programs outlined in the President's address are scrutinized and debated with diligence, objectivity, and patriotism. It is imperative that we gain a clear and full understanding of the government's development agenda, as this will empower the National Assembly and its committees to effectively execute their legislative oversight and their representative functions. Your Excellency, on a separate note, allow me, in my capacity as Speaker of the National Assembly of the Gambia and the President of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA Africa Region, to officially inform this Chamber and the nation that the Gambia will host the 54th Annual General Meeting of the CPA Africa Region from the 10th to the 16th of August 2025. This historic occasion marks the first time our country will host this prestigious parliamentary gathering. We look forward to welcoming speakers, members of parliament, clerks, and officials from across the African continent under the shared banner of unity, democracy, and parliamentary development. It will be a proud and transformative moment for our legislature and our nation. Finally, Mr. President, I thank you once again for honoring this Assembly with your address. In the same spirit, I extend gratitude to His Excellency, the Vice President, my Lord, the Chief Justice, and Honorable Justices of the Superior Courts, Honorable Cabinet Ministers, Honorable Members of the Assembly, and all distinguished invited guests for their presence at this important event in our parliamentary calendar. On behalf of both sides of the Assembly, I also wish to register our heartfelt appreciation to all Gambians for their continued support and collaboration in our collective pursuit of nation building. A special word of thanks goes to the Office of the Clerk, the Task Force, and all staff and stakeholders who have in their various ways contributed immensely to the success of today's event. Honorable members, upon putting the question, I kindly request all guests to remain seated to allow His Excellency the President to take his leave of the chambers, to be followed by the Vice President, Cabinet Ministers, and other dignitaries. On that note, honorable members, I now put the question: be it resolved that this August Assembly do stand adjourned until Monday, 23rd June 2025 at 10 a.m. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. This Assembly now stands adjourned until Monday, 25th June 2025 at 10 a.m. prompt.
It's rather unfair that the Assembly stands adjourned till Monday, but not this panel. We have only had the time in which His Excellency the President has gone through his address to digest it and comment on it. They have until Monday, so they have the weekend, and even they might take it as bedtime reading, gentlemen. And we will come back. It's sort of individual things that people might have picked out. We did discuss, and of course, by definition, it's a kind of broad brush and broad stroke approach to, you know, what they said was the kind of progress made, challenges faced, and the country's aspirations. I particularly like the phrase about a small nation. What was it? A flourishing small nation on the African continent. Mr. Mboja, I could come to you first on my immediate left. What were your takeaways from that?
In the end, even though in the past we used to getting the economic stuff first, but we know why now, why he really put the international foreign affairs first. He wanted to put us in this, set out the international context in which we are having to operate, I suppose, and the fact that he's the OIC chair and the rest of it. So in the end, this is what we expected. We've got this avalanche of information, and quite rightly, we're going to have to go back, perhaps fact-checked certain things, as it were, isn't it? That's what we do as journalists. And that's really when we can sink our teeth, really digest what's been going on. For me, when he started with the foreign affairs element, I thought, what would he say about economic? A lot of people are asking, why are they still here? You know, the security sector reform, what's going on? But not much said.
Well, as I said, it's kind of broad brush. He mentioned them, but it was in passing almost.
In passing, sort of thanking them for being here. So stuff like that. This time, not much on legislation. I used to remember in the past, every policy, there is some legislation to be tabled, but not so much perhaps this year.
I think we can go to our colleague Usman Jatta, who was in the chamber. Usman, I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can give us a brief summary. I don't know, you might even have somebody there willing to speak to you. Usman, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ade. It has been a very long day of a 2-hour session by the President giving a lengthy speech on his State of the Nation address. The President has highlighted various points from education to health to infrastructure and diplomacy, you know, and he has also given assurance that he would make sure that as his government would stand for the people of the country to make sure that they protect the well-being of every Gambian, you know, in all parts of the country, you know, that is including the diaspora, of course. So he has also talked about the challenges and the achievements of the government in the past years, also highlighting different strategies of his government, which includes the National Development Plan, the URUA, the NDP, of course. So he has also highlighted on the country's national first land policy and efforts to make sure that the issue of land problems are addressed in the country. And from that, he has also highlighted into sports, security, and so forth, basically.
Thank you for that, Usman. And if I can, were you able to speak to anybody there who was willing to speak, or are they all engaged at the moment?
For now, they're about to come out, actually. Probably in the next few minutes, I would engage them to know their perspectives on the President's State of the Nation address. The Speaker has also adjourned the session till Monday, 23rd, where MPs will be allowed to debate on the subjects that were raised by the President. So during that session, the Vice President, Mohamed B.S. Jallow, will be attending the session, and with some key ministers who will be part of this session as well. So they are very interesting moments for the country and for the Gambia at large. Basically, for now.
Well, thank you for that, Osman. And we come back to the studio, and Osman's going to get his pay docked for recalling them MPs. They are National Assembly members. I keep telling them all in my team. But just all jokes aside, Almami, what were your takeaways from that? And lastly, I'll come to you, Professor.
Okay. Like Mr. Mboch said, I mean, the word cloud, if you look at it, I think all the usual suspects are present there.
Sure.
We hear about conservation.
I was ticking them off as we went down. Kairaklo got a mention, the Banjul Declaration.
The Banjul Declaration.
Yes.
We were I'm personally very pleased that it is still front and center of our national discourse. But there are certain key words that also I haven't heard, because in the effort to transition to a more sustainable environment, the whole agenda now is creating green jobs. I did not hear anything, even though indirectly a mention was made about the Songhai Mixed Farming Center.
Yes.
And to come back to what a professor was saying earlier, that systemic changes are required. Also vocabulary needs to reflect that. And I heard that NAWEC is now divided into two. Sure. What most Gambians don't know, NAWEC is a private company, 100% owned by the government.
Right.
So its activities are regulated by the Companies Act. So to that end, I think the delivery of services generally should look to the opportunities of corporatization. Because you hear some things in agriculture, you hear things in fisheries, giving out things free to communities and individuals who cannot, in the end, manage it properly, is not a very good investment. So, but if you can corporatize some of these activities so that people see it as a job that they go to and they are expected to produce certain outputs, I think that kind of public-private partnership and the corporate discipline can help communities acquire more assets and manage them better, because you have an overarching management structure that can make a difference. Again, we talked about diplomacy first, but economic diplomacy, climate diplomacy, these are also very important ways of enabling us to acquire assets, because the issue of climate justice is now very, very urgent globally. And as a country that is impacted by the adverse impacts of climate change, we are entitled as of right under international law to get some of these assets, whether it's a solar farm or it's a windmill. These are all very expensive assets, but we can acquire them on the basis of justice, and those are things that I think government policy should now try to reflect and create the necessary legal and regulatory framework, both at the international level and at the domestic level. So just to speak briefly, the land policy.
Yes.
I think we have been talking about land quite a bit. Yes. Most people need land for development, either into industries or houses. So the policy should be directly addressing housing, because we are a very land-stressed country. You know, we have a small land area, especially the most livable part of it is the coastal area. So there, the development should go towards housing, and to look at the examples of Mauritius again and Singapore. If you have that right, you can house a population as it grows, and people will be comfortable. Not, are they having a huge estate like they used to have in the UK or imperial style, but a comfortable, modern setup that is close to facilities and amenities. We have a new university campus. It could grow into a university town with the right kind of policies and incentives to build housing. Because if you go to London, the houses, almost all of them look alike.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah, depending on the area you go to. So those are, for me, a land policy is good, but a housing policy that could regenerate the capital city.
I guess, to be fair to them, they're consulting on it. And so they're taking on board, various views. And it was interesting that His Excellency the President mentioned that we can't expand our land area, and we have to make. We're not Israel, where we can keep expanding. But yes.
I mean, particularly for that reason, this is where we need to be imaginative and be creative. Again, maybe my last point for this intervention is the whole idea of tourism. Now people are talking about MICE tourism, where international meetings and conferences, and it's very satisfying to hear the speaker saying that the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth is coming here for the first time. Last year we had the OIC for the first time.
That's right.
Maybe the Commonwealth heads of government, which was in Rwanda recently, could be coming to the Gambia. So if the tourism is also looked at from that point of view, because I heard in the news from the information minister the other time that the OIC secretariat is now transformed into a private company owned by the government called the Banjul International Conference Center. So these are all assets within the tourism ecosystem that, if at all is leveraged properly, can bring a lot of return for the Gambia and can attract the Gambia as a destination for conference tourism, for exhibitions and things like that. For me, I think that those were missing elements in otherwise a very good and a broad-based State of the Nation address. But like you said, all of these things cannot be in one speech.
You can't go to the minutiae.
Yes. Some of the details, I think the policymakers, the bureaucracy, must also try to condense some of it. I think some of it was rather too elaborate for my own liking, but that's me.
Okay. And before I bring in Professor Sen, just to say to our viewers that we talked about people being disadvantaged because this was completely in English, as is the discussion. His Excellency, we will be having immediately after this a panel to which Mr. Mboj will remain that will go into in our local languages to kind of discuss some of what was said and also to kind of enlighten those viewers who do not speak or understand English, so that they don't feel, so that they're not completely left out. So do stay with us after this particular panel ends. There will be another panel that will take it on. Professor, you were making notes, as we all were, as we went down. And I did say, it's kind of broad brush, and Almami has said that you couldn't go into some of the finer detail by definition, because otherwise we'll be here for days. But what were your immediate takeaways?
And I think that probably would have been the primary reason why he should have focused on the primary concerns of the country.
That would have been quite a breakaway from the norm, because I ticked off all the usual suspects, as Almami said. He mentioned them all. Perhaps you were saying he should have prioritized a few and maybe and then given a broad brush to the others.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would say about 2 years ago, not much of a difference in terms of his summation. I found it disappointing because the Gambia is now at a place where we should be concerned about improving lives, declining poverty, and really making it work for the majority of Gambians. Yes, there are the technicalities, but I found them very disappointingly articulated. On the whole, I must say that I feel very disappointed with the summation, with the delivery, and the focus of his policies. I think most of the policies are misplaced.
Right.
And I do believe that a capitalist-oriented economy is going to make Gambia a lot more poorer than it is today.
Right.
And what I'm suggesting is we need to rethink. We have the institutes and the institutions that can provide alternatives, that can provide supplements, and so forth and so on, to make this country a more viable place. I believe the entire model of development that we're doing in the Gambia
is wrong. You were saying earlier.
It's really misplaced.
Okay, so having said that, and I mentioned before we re-engaged, that the National Assembly members are being given the weekend to digest and then come up. Given the makeup of our National Assembly, do you expect that some of your concerns will be reflected in the debate raised by various people?
I would hope so. Because really, what the President has said is not very different from what he had said in the previous years. And I would hope that the National Assembly members would begin to interrogate, demystify this aura of developmentalism centered around the World Bank and other institutions. They talked about everything international. I mean, the very nature of his and the structure of his speech focused on the international, away from the domestic.
The local.
And what I'm saying is we must begin from the domestic and then enhance our abilities to procure elements that would enhance the development of this country. Income inequality wasn't mentioned. He talked about poverty very briefly. Infant mortality. I mean, the list goes on.
Right.
What is development when these things are not addressed? I could go on. But
Yes, but Mboj, can I come to you? Because when we talked about health, just because of my own particular concerns, I would have liked to have heard more about, strides that are being made to improve the health sector and health service delivery, particularly. But as I said, every time I come to this, I'm fully aware that, they can't go into fine detail. But I think Professor Sen has made a very good point. Perhaps because successive leaders have felt handcuffed to the model where they feel they have to mention every sector and give equal weight to every sector, there are certain things, certain priorities that perhaps should be focused on, maybe to the exclusion of others, and the others might be the ones that you just give the broad brush stroke to.
Absolutely. I think in the end it's really sort of like a stylistic preference. I do not know. Perhaps someone might say that there's a substantial issue there, substantial point to be made there. We're used to this by now. This is what politicians do. This is an opportunity for a politician to showcase. I've been doing A, B, C, and D. So I've been thinking about this sort of election year dynamic, how much is it playing into the speech? This is what you expect. And we've been covering most of these stories. Professor Sen's idea of the capitalist economy, changing it, that's a radical, I think, agenda, really. It's a longer-term project. I am not sure whether this transition, we are in a transition. I'm not sure whether this government can really do it. But in various areas, when it comes to infrastructure, we are using it. We travel from Bruceby to Caraba Avenue, and these things matter. How we the lived experience of it, I think these things matter. The energy supply in certain areas, as we said, there are some improvements. These things matter. And with Tibet, what the Minister of Higher Education is trying to do. So when I look into all of these different areas, of course you see effort. It doesn't mean that it's huge. Perhaps what remains is far more than what we've achieved, given the problems really he inherited. Remember that. So this is really the key. Just as we said earlier, with the what they call supply side economics, they are putting in things in place. Nobody can really deny that, be it the fertilizers, be it agriculture, in all these different areas. It's just that the demand side will be extremely difficult. For instance, you import most of your inflation, your space, the space you have, really, to maneuver it isn't much, to be quite honest, for now. So it is perhaps by dealing with the longer term issues, really, that will pave the way for the shorter term ones to move, isn't it? As they move, they'll get to that end. So it's really a difficult situation that we are in many ways. It's not just Gambia, it's all over Africa. You listen to all of them, they are Sonas, very similar in many ways with the difficulties. So I perhaps a more sympathetic, can I call it that, more charitable, given really the enormousness of what we face.
We have 3 minutes to wrap up, gentlemen, so I'll come to you quickly, but before we do, I will just pick up very quickly. I mean, just on a personal level, I live along Coastal Road, close to Coastal. So not that far from Caraba Avenue. My journey to work used to be an hour. Now it takes me 20 minutes along the same road. And so...
This is early driven.
Well, this is it.
I mean, what I'm saying is...
But for somebody who is a commercial driver applying that road, he can make 10 times more journeys than he would have done had the road not been fixed.
What I'm suggesting is...
We have to wrap up.
Yes, I'm wrapping up. Much of what we've been saying...
Oh, I beg your pardon. I think my colleague, Usman Jatta, is back. We have him again, and I'll come back to you, Prof. Sure. So hold the thought. Usman, over to you. I gather you have some people there ready to speak to us.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Ade, and we're just wrapping up, and the President is still in the chambers. Before coming out, we just have here the Honourable Member here, Honourable Bakari. Honourable, it's great to have you on QTV.
Thank you so very much for the for the interview. I am happy to be interviewed as well.
What's your take on the President's State of the Nation address for this year?
As I always say, when you address the nation, you address the challenges that the people are facing. Among the challenges that we face as a nation is inflation constantly draining us. And the President told us that inflation is reducing. They were able to tackle inflation. But in reality, they are unable to tackle inflation. Because once inflation is tackled, then we realize that the price of food commodities go down. The exchange rate also goes down. But today, as you and I know, the CFA is on the rise. The euro, you change it €1 for $82, which is a cause for concern and a cause for alarm. Then everybody should know that we as a nation are facing a lot, and the President should be in a position to tell us how he wants to address that.
So what do you think can be done to address the situation that you think we are in that?
Once we need to introduce productivity. What are we producing as a nation? In terms of our productivity, things are less. We are not as expected. So we could increase on the productivity, that is to attain the food self-sufficiency. Because attainment of food self-sufficiency is key. And also, if we produce something, then we can export, for instance. For instance, like our mangoes here are wasted, and our mangoes are the best in the world. So how can the President connect those dots? And also, we have our mangoes to be exported. Our cashews are not going anywhere. Our cashews are of low value as well. We could increase in terms of cashew production. And in terms of rice, we could produce onion and other vegetables that we can also consume here as a nation. But whatever we are having is coming. But we are not having anything to export. Now, if we are able to increase in terms of our export, then we could increase in terms of our food change as well, and our value of our currency also will be maintained. That is an important element. Now, when you look at in terms of security sector, he said he's position to empower them. But how do he want to empower them? The President also spoke about creating 150,000 jobs earlier on. Now, the President also failed to tell us how far have they gone in creating that 150,000 jobs. The President should have been in a position to tell us we are at this point in time, we are able to create 50,000 jobs, or we are able to create 75,000 jobs, or we are able to create 100,000 jobs. But he fails to tell us how far have they gone in creating that 150,000 jobs, as promised by the President initially.
We know that on Monday, the sessions will start where NAMS will take part in the discussions. Are you planning to take part in this?
I will definitely participate in that debate and asking the president the questions that are needed for him to address the issues in reality and not to run away. If you face challenges as a nation, you have to be bold enough to face it head on. And the president also failed to tell us about the Spain agreement, the Saudi Arabia agreement, how far have they gone, what motivated them for them to come to that level. And those are important things that we want to know before exploiting our children in foreign land, our youth in foreign land.
I think by Monday you would have more opportunities to talk about it. Thank you very much. That was Honorable Baji there. And we will try to have more MPs to get to know their reactions as we conclude this. And we have more MPs here. We'll be just rolling inside. Good morning.
Okay. Are you able to get somebody? I think our colleague Osman Jatta is I think he might have gotten somebody. Yes.
Honorable, what's your take on the president's lan mooy sa xalaat si président bi speech am bi tey?
Waaw yéen ñëpp yéen a ko teewee gis ngeen speech président bi tey benn la boo xam ne su ma eboon ne musu fee am président bi mu ngi teew fii ak dal yar ak teggin wax lu rëy loo xam ne mooy li nga xam ne mooy réew mi jëm kanamam li nga xam ne moom la achieve ci at yi nga xam ne moo passé ba at 2025 bi lee
ñi xam ne on Monday da ngeen di dellu fii ngeen gën a def debate si président bi si yu mu wax nii yow ndax di nga teg part si debate bi.
incha allah rabbi dinañ teg part waaye daanaka fu mu nekk nii dafa wax lépp te li mu wax yëpp li wolof di njaay di wax ne weddi gis bokku ca li mu wax yëpp ñun dañ ci teg bët muy sant yàlla gu rëy yan nañ fekkee ay déwéni déwén.
jërëjëf. We just moved to this other side. We have another MP here who is from Banjul Central. I will just join the interview basically to have...
government. It has laid down government policies and programs, also legislative processes that have also been laid down in order to improve the economic viability and also improve the livelihood of the people. So basically it was a good speech, it was a good document, but everything looks good on paper basically. So yes. Yeah, based on my take home, the issues we are cross-cutting basically. We have a big opportunity on Monday to be able to discuss in depth about how we see the speech, and we at Parliament we are privy to certain information because we perform oversight over government. So this gives us an opportunity to be able to really, even as the President was speaking, us as parliamentarians, have certain statistics, at heart or in our mind when it comes to comparing what the president is putting out and the information that we were able to gather from our oversight functions. So, for example, when it comes to, just to give a little example, I cannot touch all sectors, but for example, if you look at the energy sector, we've seen that government are more focused on accessibility. That is, they are more focused on rapid development to reach far-end areas when it comes to electricity. But even when we are at the chambers, you would see that the lights are just jumping up and down, which means that there is still quality of electricity that is deficient in this country. I think it's very prudent that whilst we are aiming for rapid development, we also make sure that quality service and value for money are also parallel within the developmental space. Yes. 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 Mm-hmm. Sorry, I can't hear.
I said,
yes.
In regards to the
inflation, yes.
Yeah, the president
Yes, the fear of inflation is once inflation strikes, you understand, and Gambia is not an economy that is really producing or manufacturing, basically. So most of what we expect are imports, you understand. We are not exporting as we should, basically. So the likelihood of inflation hitting us very hard is always quite high, if you look at it from a fiscal perspective, you understand. Even the president made mention when it comes to salary increment, you understand, we all welcome it. From the level of the assembly, we were all yearning for it, we are all pushing for it so that the salary scales can be improved.
Here we have another honorable. Honorable, it's great to have you on QTV Live. You've just had the president read his 2025 State of the Nation address. What's your take on it?
Well, to be honest with you, with my 3 years in Parliament, I think this is one of the best speech. I said well written. I'm not saying the content, because that one I have to gauge. So I have to go through it and then compare the impact of what is written with the local people, because that's what we are serving. So the report can be written probably for readers and listeners to suit them, but what matters, what is said in the report, how much has this transformed or impacted the lives of people that the report is directed to. Well, when you look at the economy, because everyone is crying, you look at inflation. Like he said now, inflation has dropped to something like 9%. And then he said from 17%. Well, according to my investigation, the inflation went up to something like 19.8%, which was almost at 20%. So the inflation did not stop at 17%. But nevertheless, they said it has dropped. And then you look at the depreciation of the dollar. Like today, as I speak to you, SEFA is around almost 630. This is even increasing the high cost of living in this country. Everyone is crying everywhere. Just look at. So it's not a matter of just coming here, just looking at the report, well written, like I said, compared to my 3 years in Parliament. But when you look at the content and then what exactly is happening on the ground, there is a big difference. But I don't want to finalize everything here. Let me go through the report. But there is a lot of contradiction if you go by what is read and then definitely what is happening on the ground.
Do you mind summarizing this in local language in Mandinka?
Yeah, lafta men fola niya jube ay men safe ani ay men karang. Tonya be damen to na sangi sabo kono National Assembly to. E bagela ko ala reportro ala saferi nya ani a karanta nyamen is one of the best. Niya ning wo sanjol men tambita. Bar nin ko atlem the best wolem saferi nya ani kuma kangol men safeta. Bare membe caring ground auto me ala reportro ya fo ko nyine be caring niya jube comme ko nga start na economy la because ni nara do ko la karola economy te beti anola do ko man sotono because nyine be illegal migration of sambanakam so ni to le afo nyine be kekan economy be beti akanne because iko inflation o wala niya jube na kodo ala baranganda ya because atata nu ntela research do for 19 point something percent 8 almost 20 but it only follow 17 wala tang ani worola iko sang agitale for 9%. But now you be high cost of living, well, ni nata aka salary lafa men for ni mol gube 30%. It has no value because ida fe ngol lafa la 30%. Be pare mol be kumbo kay mela bungol jono e manta no marcheto yana gube fisheries comme ko nyemuta bundato ni a gube income lancings and kudo la carola ako $142 million. But ni o fanan jube kotake yeta na badan dangola malo nyerka budamento a jube mun do kule be keri wato. So if you score about $142 million, yeta wo dlato wolman transform no. What is the essence?
So da minister keno pour kanyim problem ol be fenke inflation o aning doku balea.
It is all efficient, effective management. Na resources all how best we can manage them. Yalon ka fo nyamento Gambia ala lual anala police wal ka dadale to meet best practices and international standards. But in the actual sense, to translate these laws into realities is always a big failure. So ibe kuol folaja kumole betia, but nitara ground auto wo betia tige. Na fonin kelbe kumbo kan doku karola. Migration o mojalunem illegal migration. Ni nata na foreign policy like coming from them between we and the countries. Na mol even Morocco nyol doli coming from Mauritania and others. How many are suffering there?
As a National Assembly, some of these things you control.
Yalon ni ajube fambi National Assembly ni be karangola ntebe la moy kan kumola bara dolbe munela bulkoso ni afwa it's not men savera ku I bet ya main important is what is happening with our local people. We are serving our people. It's not about me ntenga dress ga yena I'm fine. I'm looking at the economy ala impact for the people. It's not about everything is okay or nothing is okay. Go to the market. Go to the fishery industries. Go to how our natural resources are managed. So you be any effort and go even to the international arena coming for diplomacy of foreign country. A lot of our youth, those in even Africa country, look at even between us and Senegal. Look at the currency, the CFA. So these are things that we need to tackle. So yes, is fine. But are we going to do that? That's the question.
Thank you so much, Honorable. That was Honorable Tumani Sane of Fonyi Kalaji. There we have heard from Honorable Bakari Baji from the other side of the Fonyi as equally as well. But they have all, their message is the same actually. They're talking about high inflation and the government coming up with strategies that could help the country thrive, from salary increments and other areas as well. So basically, that's it, Mr. Ade. Back to you.
Usman, now we heard Usman there, and I think one of the things that came through is something that we had been discussing here, kind of improving our industrial and manufacturing base. We haven't been very good at that, but also about managing what little resources we have. We haven't been good at that. So, gentlemen, in summing up, before we hand over to the next panel, Prof, I think you wanted to come in next.
Yes, I mean, these two gentlemen, National Assembly member Baji and Sane, capture explicitly what I was trying to say. I think the Gambia has missed its road to development. And I think what they have said essentially captures that, and I don't need to repeat it. What I want to say basically is, why is the diaspora? Yes, there was mention of the diaspora. But are they going to vote?
Right.
Are there attempts to make them enfranchised? They contribute so much money.
I wrote an article saying we view them as an ATM.
Absolutely.
And nothing else.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
And what I'm suggesting is, let's do politics and do it right. What we're focusing on and what Barrow focused on are not really the main issues. We have to talk about power and its distribution within the country and overseas. I can go on.
So, we've been told to wrap up,
Yes.
but Almami, before we come in, during the speech, one of the things I wrote on my paper here was that how ironic that we're talking about energy generation and we're having power cuts at the National Assembly. That was not me inventing anything. The viewers would have seen and heard that and observed that. But just in summary, before we have to hand over to another panel.
Yeah, we did mention about the services of NAWEC, and now that there is a separation, what is fundamental for me, both from Mr. Buj and Professor Sen, is this idea that you need...
we can just see His Excellency the President exiting the chamber, and he's taking mostly acclaim and acclamation and applause. But I think, as we heard from some of the National Assembly members, I did say that I did pose the question to all of you, do you think that there will be kind of stringent debate? Well, it seems from the straw poll of the three we heard, that is very likely. Even when they praised parts of the speech or even the language of the speech, they were willing to go into some detail about the things that they disagree with. And now His Excellency the President has now gotten into his vehicle and he's about to leave. And as I mentioned earlier, if anybody's just joining us, you're watching QTV and you're watching our special on the State of the Nation Address 2025. And the weather has been exceedingly good to us. It's a bright and sunny day. Some people were even complaining that it was too hot. But at least it has not rained because we are in the rainy season. And so we can just see His Excellency the President departing. So whilst we're watching that, Almami, if I can come back to you just for your concluding remarks, please.
Yes, I mean, this part and parcel of our democratic process. Now the National Assembly has an opportunity to bring in all the things that they believe the President has not delivered on, and to also proactively propose new paths and new directions. But I think the core message from the two NAMs is that the management of these resources needs to be looked at. Implementation needs to be looked at.
Sure.
So it speaks to a vision of transformation or a revolution without a crisis, if you like. Because if you remember, as a Briton, after the Second World War, Churchill, who won hearts and minds all over the world, was defeated.
They voted him out.
And
yes.
immediately
Right.
they came up with the idea of a national health service.
Of course,
So,
yes.
the moment requires a certain approach to governance and to development
Sure.
that we hope in our democratic give and take Now is the turn of the legislature to be imaginative, to be creative, and bring about all the laws that are necessary to effective implementation.
To make these things a reality, so they jump off the paper and impact people directly.
Yes.
Really.
That's,
I'm
that's their
I'm saying that's what we need to do.
Yeah, that's their constitutional mandate, is for the president to come and lay down his ideas, his achievements, but the future is going to be secured only on the basis of the rule of law. And that rule of law, for our time, means competent and effective utilization of resources that you have, living within your means, cutting down on waste. Because sometimes you will see enterprises or endeavors. It comes to mind. There was a YEP project here to empower youths and give them livelihoods. After the project collapsed, 18 million or 15 million or whatever it was, almost all the businesses that were created under that went under.
I mean,
so those are the kind of challenges. They are recurring. You have a project, it completes, and there is no sustainability path forward. And for me, I think this is where public-private partnership is meaningful. Corporatization of the delivery of services becomes very relevant, so that implementation, all our private companies, not all of them, but they are thriving. And most of these activities, really, our private sector must have a greater role and a greater significance.
I have to stop you there because we do have to wrap up. It just leaves for me to thank our panel for some interesting input, and I've enjoyed it, and I hope the viewers have enjoyed it as much as I have. And coming after this, we will have another panel, and we will be delving into some of the issues raised in our local languages. But I think we've all touched on various things. Yes, it was a broad speech, and you know, by definition, it could only go into certain things. What we heard from the National Assembly members, they like if it had gone into some depth, greater depth. So, Mr. Mbo, just leaves for me to thank you for the moment, because you'll be remaining here, but thank you for your interjections. And Professor Sen, particularly like the fact that you want us to focus on people and how things impact people beyond the page, beyond the words. And even, as you said, rip up the old model and come with something afresh. So thank you for your interjections. And Alma Mital, friend, and you know, it's always good to have you here, and thank you for your interjections also.
Absolutely.
And just for me to say to the viewers, thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this program, but do stay with QTV, because we will have another interesting and interactive one where we will engage with our viewers in some of our local languages. Do stay tuned. Do not go away.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte. Rifled in! Out.
Did you know you can buy cash power using QMoney wallet absolutely free up to $30,000 Cs? Use our app or dial 323# and select Q Power. Choose register meter. Enter your meter number. Dial *323# and follow these simple steps. Number 1, select option 3 for Q Power. Number 2, choose option 1 to buy any amount of Q Power. Enjoy free QCell airtime every time you cash in to purchase Q Power. For any inquiries, call 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalbe.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte. Rifled in! Out.
Hidandi da wawi sodu de cash power e Q money wallet maong te ayobata hai hunde ida wawi sode ko yeha guluji chapan $30. Ko watano baby wadu dial *323# joka sartaji ding suboda option 3 fi Q power. ontumasi suboda register meter number sa gaini natina number meter maong. Wadu dial star 323 has joka sartajiding suboda option 3 FQ power. Ontumasi suboda ko jelu falda sodude. Awawa hebude ko bura Andre free QCell airtime. Watu kala soduda Q power. Fi hebu gon hen ko labi. The wine no de 133 Q money sunyu kalpe.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte. Rifled in! Out.
Korea neko anila Q money wallet isa Q power sanno katafo wulitan saba andung ita fenjola. Ibe minkela ibanna Apple download la wala yesta 323 has dial B yebula sartol noma. Follow ye register mita tombo. Fulanjao yela mita number dundi. Yesta 323 has dial B yebula sartol noma. Follow iba number 3 la detela puri yakiu power soto no. Fulanjao iba number 1 la detela katombondirke hapola ilafta min sanna. Amanda Wola, wati ye kodo dundi pour ka Q power san, QCell beso la free bonus lale. Ni lafta kuma ko yomo yele nyinto, kumandiro ke 133. Q money, sunyu kalpe.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte. Rifled in! Out.
Nga ne ak sa Q money wallet bi mun nga jënda cash power te doo si fay dara mun nga jënda bello tollu si fanweeri junne dalasi jëfandikool ak suñu app bi wala nga dial star 323 hash nga toppa sarta yi busal 3 pour jënda Q power soo paree nga tànna register meter soo paree nga dugal sa meter number bi dial star 323 hash nga toppa sarta yi busal 3 pour jënda Q power busal bena pour tànna app bi nga bëgg jënda te dinga baneexul si free call bu la QCell di may saay boo dugalee xaalis pour jënda Q power pour am si lu la leer callal 133 Q money suñu kalpe.
QMoney is back again with its easy-to-use, secure and convenient mobile app that allows you to carry out all your transactions. No matter where you are or what time it is, you can always access your funds. With the new QMoney app, you can cash in and out, buy credit, buy Q Power, shop, make payments, and so much more. You can also send Q money, pay bills, receive international remittances, and transfer cash to others. Just download the app from your Play Store or App Store and get started. For more information, call customer care on 133. Q Money, Sinu Kalpe. We innovate, others follow.
Q-Money arti webi na fitora gol no yawi te non kadi no moƴƴi Q-Money a wawa wadde piji ɗin fow kala ko wonɗa wattu kala a wawa hendade mbuudi maɗin e o Q-Money app kesong a wawa nattinde mbuudi maɗum yaltina soda credit soda Q power soda ko falaɗa te non kadi wawa hen yoɓude himɓe e ko heewi ida wawi kadi nuldude Q-Money yoɓa bilji maɗin te non kadi hendoɗa mbuudi ko yaasi nulda himɓe kadi mbuudi fi nafitoragol ɗum no weeɓi yahu ka Play Store maɗum ka App Store fi wawa fuɗɗade fi heɓugol hen ko laaɓi noddu Q-Money customer care e 133 Q-Money suñu kalpe minen udditi lawol ngol si woɓɓe jokki Q-Money, imurundana nekoteke anila ni mobile app Sona yaringo alanna yata ndung ise kuol bekeno ibeda woda wati ise munafano ila kodola anin Q-Money la ni mobile app kuto ise kodo dundino ye kodo fintinde ise credit ko sanno ye Q power sang ye fengol sang ndum fanang ise mol jono anin ku jamalu ise Q-Money kino yela bilol jo ndum fanang bantala banko se kodo kiyeno ise kodo fanang kino do kotenge kurke munafanyina a download sign Play Store anin App Store ni lataka kusenango sotoje Q-Money customer care commandi 133 Q-Money sunyu kalpe ntolle nga silo walang dole mol noma Q-Money delsina ak sen mobile app bu bes bi orna gawna te it mun nga ko jëfande ko pour def ci lo bëgga fo mun di ne wattu bu ne mun nga jot sa xaalis ak Q-Money mobile app bu bes bi mun nga dugal xaalis génné xaalis jënd ci crédit jënd ci Q power jënd lo bëgga ak yu bari mun nga ci yone Q-Money fay sa bill si jot xaalis bitim réew yónnee xaalis ci noo ko bëggee looy def yombana downloadal app bi léegi ca Play Store bu dul loolu App Store pour nga door pour am si lu leer koolal Q-Money customer care si.
We are live from the National Assembly and continuing with our broadcast of the State of the Nation address. The President has just delivered his 2025 State of the Nation address, and he has highlighted various points from health, energy, security, sports, and immigration, and equally as well diplomacy. And we've heard from some of the MPs who made some concerns with regards to inflation, which according to the President has dropped significantly. Here with me to discuss further on the matter is Honorable Mai Fati. Mai, it's great to have you on QTV live on the President's State of the Nation's address speech for 2025.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
What's your perspective on the President's speech? You have heard the President speak for almost an hour.
The speech was, President was very emphatic. He was very clear, and he was very detailed about the state of the nation. This is a constitutional imperative. The President does this every year. And this year, suddenly, there are, as usual, the customary elements. The President spoke about every sector, every ministry, every department, and every agency. He also talks about our common values, the values that hold us together as Gambians, the need for unity, the need for collaborative activity, the need for the elimination of toxic politics, the need for a purposeful drive towards economic transformation and development for the whole country. So the President talks about an explosion in education. He talks about infrastructure development. He talked about youth empowerment. He talked about fighting poverty and how the government is really working hard in order to uplift the life of every Gambian out of poverty.
What did you find interesting in the President's speech today?
Well, everything is interesting. But what I find really inspiring is the commitment of the President, to really expand energy all over the country. He has indicated that we'll have at least 95% energy coverage all over the Gambia in a short period of time. For me, this is critical because energy is a critical enabler for transformational development. Energy is key for the Gambia's march towards a middle income economy. Energy is key towards encouraging foreign direct investment. Energy is key in expansion of construction and in the development of new businesses and new ideas. Energy is key even in the transportation sector. So the energy mix is the critical element for national economic construction. And the fact that we are moving towards almost 100%, 95% energy coverage in the country is indeed revolutionary. It is one of the most in Africa. So for me, I find this truly inspiring. I think this is going to lift the Gambia, leapfrog us into the next stage. So energy expansion in all over the country, I think is the game changer. It's the game changer today.
Interesting, it's a game changer. But one interesting point that the President raised was like the decline of inflation, which according to some norms is the different is a different narrative. Like, what do you say to that?
Well, in fact, this is something I was coming to. The economy has grown. We talk about over 5% last year, and the projection of this year is going to be sustained. Now, this is due to prudent finance management. It is due to the way the economy has been, efficiently managed all for the past 1 year. And of course, inflation dipped down from 10% to single digits now. I think this is really commendable. Now, if you talk about a decline in inflation, it does not mean that it translates directly into people's pockets. It simply means there are circumstances that have indicated sort of economic factors that are really encouraging growth and also investor friendly and so forth. So really, whether the NAMs agree or not, this is not a figure that is indiscriminately or determined by the Gambia government. This is a figure that is determined by our development partners, such as the African Development Bank, the World Bank, the IMF. They are saying that inflation has come to single digits, and that is one of a kind in West Africa, or one of a kind in Africa.
What can we do differently to change the narrative?
Well, really, it's all about toxic politics. When we talk about realities in the economy, we should all be honest to one another. Changing the narrative includes people educating themselves. It means being honest about the figures. And I do know that there are challenges. I know that people are complaining about corruption. People are talking about the rise in prices, food prices, inflation in food prices. All these are concerns. But the president has shown a commitment to move beyond this. And then I'm convinced by the next State of Nation address, we will talk about different statistics.
Briefly, could you talk to our local audience in Mandinka? What's your take on this year's speech?
Ngamira nyimu kata balati kadu sang na Gambia la marli kitabo le president Yamari pour ay anim banko mo le diamu banko be tembe jumale president le diamo fo diamu kumma ba amang kud karata keri masakunda to ay membulaje a diam de karo mume bela nyaata be ke kan banko kan karo jumale la anin karol min yalon ko fanan nyanda kan dewsiri ka kafu ka falindiro ko karol anin kole ya dinkira jumale be na nyaata fanan mutarin koma. So president la diamo ñing ay toña itan di gambe dum la banko la tamandir ñaato ay yamaro fanake diamo ñing kono la kilimba yala anin ka kayro sabatin di banko kan anin ka tongu fana sabatin di banko kan diamo mi yalon ko akumata baake be president congratulate la banki dum bebe content ring mo be content mo be yalon ko gambia be tombe jumaado to bi na banko be bambandinne ñaatota be yirwalinne kayro fana be sabati kanne tonko fana be wulu kan banko kan alala lu wolum so mustaf alhamdulillah si ala tentu gambe me temere tombe am yalla ko alhamdulillah hakilo sabati bake adun ay mol fana nyafa ay banko be nyafa wala mto nyata.
Briefly, I will just speak to the studio, but I'll get back to you, Mr. Silla. Mr. Mboj, back to you.
So now the program continues, our coverage of the President's State of the Nation address, but this time in Wolof, Mandinka, Fula, and the local languages.
I'll be speaking Fula.
So, earlier on, Mangine kon guest, wife from Neka, man my host. I've got on my right here, Loli M. Kamara, my colleague. Here on my left, Mamadou Gajaga. So, Legi, Ling Setan earlier on, Ling Dega. So, obviously, duñ mëna wax yépp. Xam nga dig dafa cover lu bare bare sectors of government yépp la cover. So, nañ summarize as best we could. So, Sona, let's begin with that. Maybe will it help. But impression la they buy to you. Let's begin first from there. Then you look at the details. Loli.
Hanga musmo all of his setut. Why assalamu alaikum mbokk yi ñu seetaan jamono bi QTV la. Suba ba léegi ñu ngi dema programme si yoo xam ne ñu ngi ko asil askan bi pour ñu daal di leen fësal li nga xam ne mooy xew si National Assembly bi tey président Adama Barrow nga xam ne mooy njiiti réew génn na dem foofu nga xam ne mooy suñu parlement bi pour because lii nekk na loo xam ne luwa baa ko tënka pour at bu jot mu génn dem waxtaan ak askan bi li jëmee si li nga xam ne mu loolu lañ def si at mi yëpp si fànnay yëpp li nga xam ne ñu si ron nguur bi so gis nañ ne tey président Adama Barrow ak délégation am nga xam ne ñoo nekk si government bi development partners si askan bi teewee nañ foofule suba ba léegi waxtaanee na fànna yu bari lii man lu jara am la because tey xam naa secteur yu bari naka lañ def si within this 1 year naka lañ doxalee si progress ak jafe-jafe yuñ jànkuwante tamit ak lan lañ war a def pour saafaral problèmes yooyu noonu comme gis naa ne lu am solo la tey lu bari leer na comme si man ak te xam naa ne tamit si boppi ñu bari tamit ñuy seetaan Mr. Mbodj.
Yes, dinañ dugga into the details. Dinañ duggati perhaps not all sector by sector, but nañ just identify certain sectors. Mamadou Gajaga, li nga doon expect ak li nga deliver loo mën a wax ci loolu.
waaw dafa mel ni comme loolu yi nu mu ko waxee si kàllaama olof man tamit ma ñëw si soose baɗigol miliyalon ko alɓen jiibe kan fere muntanale jang na programme ol leɓe continue kan programme o miyalon ko national assembly bi banko la ñaton ko min keta président adama baroti atata jee ka ñaatilen député la anim fanan ka diyamo banko molie kuwol la mil tambita ñin sanji kelin tambila kono ay kuwol foje miliyalon ko wollom yurwa kuwolti a diyamuta kuwol fanan na miliyalon ko fanan wollom bata dalti miliyalon ko ate nala man sakunda be mille kala pour ka je ko yurwani ñaato sa soto bata kuwol la karola bari ñaato ta jamala fanan keta miliyalon ko a diyamuta wol fanan na wol be mu kulleti miliyalon ko kumayata bawo ate député bungo ani banko la loi wala sembo diala sango kono hana be kala signa kilinte ay ta député bungo to ay diamu banko mo le bi ay wala katenting bare bina dun na kuul kono le ka be jabo kessa wota le domande
that's it xam nga ñun dañ miinoon su ñëwee ci adresse bi buy door ci économie bi la daan doore
waaw
waaye tey dafa doore ak suñ relation foreign affairs international affairs ñun suñ relationship ak àdduna si nga suñ neighbor si from Senegal to ECOWAS or AU and then the UN ci boobu la dooree it was interesting so what do you think loo jëlee ci suñ relationship ak yeneen dëkk yi from li mu wax nga ñu ngi just jeexal OIC am hosting bi bu yàggut ba pare moom mooy di chair ak given àdduna si ni mu mel. So, you know, how would you analyze them?
Mr. Mbodj kamin futendinga nga kumata bakele bawo niya jibe baro nabe diamula député bungoto pour ka bankola cool diamu ak folo aka diamu economy la karola banko be tembeda jumalto sotola karola bankola yurwa kuwol te dani ñatota kuwol bari bi nataje diamo folo dollar ron a commencé ka fo Gambia ni banku dol temola relationship o ñimbe ñaadi le bring ning Sénégal tema ni Morocco ñol tema Côte d'Ivoire ñol tema ECOWAS bankol dungoni finto ñin Kenya abije ko den ka continuer ta pour ka diamo bawatelam OIC la chairman o ñinti diamo taw fanan na le pour ka je ko ñatota ni yurwa kuwol min sotota banko kan jang sa ko ñin santambila 2024 bawa Gambia OIC somito ñing hosle bari kulon dal mi alon ko zafa mam mo jakalindi bari kulom mi ala mandali kake o nyama bawo nabe diamla banko la ko la ka folo banko be tembeda jumalto yurwani economy ni development wala karola bar biya ma commencé woto a continuer ta ka diamu Gambia ni bantala banko temo be nyaadi andum fanan ka ol temol ñing ke yurwandi kaaje ko nyatota ko se sotuno je adiam da wala baake bi
absolutely. But one of them will be about 30 embassies or consuls, you know, these consular corps around the world. But Palestine, you know, Israel, they call for peace. Why selling and condemn Ken? The funny and them peace. Gis nga de Rohingya liñ def.
Wa doxé ci tanki jaama rek ñu seen naka lañ ko safaralé. Waaw. Lu am solo la Mr. Mbodj mom dal lu mo waxtané yépp tay comme noko waxé rek doorul ci mbiri dëkk bi waaye ñun suñ jokkalante ak yeneen réew mi loolu de wone na ne okay Gambia I think ne su ñëwé ci jokkalante dëkk to dëkk I think we are doing great in terms of that too because so gisee dëkk yi di ñëw si suñ dëkk ñuy sign bilateral ties ñuy nekk together I think loolu wane na ok Gambia dëkk bu am jaama la dëkk boo xam ne la tamit ñu ngi am yokkute wala ñu ngi def loo xam ne tamit yeneen dëkk ñu ngi roy daal ñu ngi roy si yu bëri daal so président bi pour mu highlight ko I don't think loolu surprise la because recently ñu ngi gis envoys yu bari yoo xam ne ñu ngi ñëw heads of state from yeneen dëkk ñu ngi ñëw di indi seen credentials yi fii nii di sign yoo xam nga so loolu yëpp is not a surprise to us ne tey dooree na point boobu noonu Mr Mbodj.
That's it. So ñu dugg nag léegi set na di scene.
Waaw.
As it were mu ngi ñëw woon rek ne tey international relations. dafa really very important. given the world ci lim nekk nii. so now ñu dugg suñ economy.
waaw
comme liñ dee wax GDP. mooy dëkk gi liñ produce yëpp. this year ñu ngi wax what 5.9%.
waaw.
so añ wax nit ñi lan la wax foofu suñ GDP suñ koom-koom yi dëkk bi increase na suñ ñoo wax tamit liñ dee wax inflation xam nga ñu ngi doon just dégg may faatu ñu ngeen ne inflation mooy the prices of goods and services mu éeg to the extent that man li ma ko bëgg a jëndee man suma purchasing power li ma mun a jënda dafa wàññeeku boobu nag gis nañ ne mu ngi doon issues de ñu ne boobu wàññeeku na de waaye ñëpp ñu ngi wax ne lu tax duma ko dee mun a fil suma poos mayang ñu doon wax ne wel doo ko mun a fil sa poos léegi di loolu international organizations ñoo ko dee wax añ laal area googu pour nit ñi am some understanding lan lañ miin by koom-koom bu ñëw GDP growth ak inflation.
ok Mr Mbodj loolu tamit lu am solo la because right now nii man xaw ma da man soose laa war a demee wala
well bu la neex rek
ma mix and blend ko
mixal waaw mu nga
waaw so fu mu nekk nii laal na si lu am solo si askan bi because xam naa ne luñ doon sentu yëpp mooy loolu le dëkk bi lii bi li nga xam ne mooy suñu économie bi wàññeeku na wala mu ngi stable ñu ko won waaye comme ñun as citizen ñu nekkuñ di ko feel so right now lan mooy war a nekk solution bi pour ñu gis ne li ñoo wax ne wàññeeku na ñun mu wàññeeku ba si ñun ñu mun koo feel loolu mooy question $1 million question li nga xam ne léegi ñu bari ñu ngi koo laajte mbe mu ne kéenoo la min sawo bonde noo fo say banko ka feŋol mil soto seno la fanna la fon fanal nyanta ka wala ke ay nga muna fon la fa wolto ba nga je ko fanal sa findindi bandala isaje na fa fanko la karola se la fa no ban fodo mine nyanta kela sign wolon questionoti ba konta manke experti ndela miro ni na faham yan romo be sembo soto ab diala nunga expert kilin soto ni jami alon ka bo ma fa ngoni mala Mr Mbodj suñ amon fi ko xamne dal mom matcham liam xam-xama matcha na si fano bobu mu gen ñoo won yoon yoo xamne right now ni su ko government bi terale dinañ mëna gis li nga xamne moy plans yu noonu wala dinañ mun a yëg li nga xam ne mooy wàññeeku li nga xam ne mooy suñ inflation bala GDP bi. waaye right now ni moom.
waaw wax nga gaa dañ daan wax ne ñun suñ inflation li dee tax am prices of goods ak services. muy dee cher. ñun duñ dee defar dara.
loolu la
nga gaa yaa ngi ko doon wax so production base bi. isn't it pour ngeen di defar moo. dan nga xam ne doo leen import. moo tax ñu ne most of suñ inflation dañ ko dee import. waaye ngeen defar moo waaye. gaj li mooy issue bi isn't it moo tax dañ war a understanding pour ma defar production base daf dee jël long time waaye nag so in the meantime lan lay def tey lan lay def ëllëg lan lay def gannaaw ëllëg lan lay def next month to next year isn't it fii la difficulté moo tax dañ war a adjust isn't it suñ expectation ak lan la nguur really mun a def
waaw loolu dafa mel ni comme am na solo trop comme loolu ni mu ko doon waxee soo ñëwee si koom-koomi réew mi réew bu nekk soo gisee réew yi am doole mooy seen xaalis bi daf dee am doole because of luñ dee defar si seen dëkk pour jaay ko bitim réew loolu suñ ko defee because xaalis bitim réew bi dafay ñëw loolu suñ ñëwee sa économique bi daf day dem ci kanam ñun nag foog naa am nañ jànkuwante yu bari si loolu noonu gis nga ne when it comes to inflation bu ñuy wax noonu loolu fànn la boo xam ne ñu ngi si am problème bu rëy because ñun lu ñuy produce almost amuñ dara lu ñuy produce wala di ko jaay si bitim réew yéena yu ndaw la in terms of agriculture ak yéena maybe juñ dee mën a am koom-koom tamit mooy ay tourisme tubaab yu fi dee ñëw pour ñëw fii nekk fii ay gan xaalis buñ fi dee spend ak Gambiens yi nga xam ne ñu ngi nekk tugal si nga xam ne dañ fi dee yónnee xaalis
ñi nekk bitim réew
waaw ñi nga xam ne dañ nekk bitim réew di sampa fii ay néeg ay kër ak yooyu noonu soo xaalis bu dee dugga si biir dëkk bi so loolu moo war a tax daal pour suñu économie bu mu dem si kanam bot am nañ jànkuwante yu bari si yooyu noonu laal na foofu noonu bot soo ñëwee nit ñi luñ bugg a gis mooy si poos yi soo ma ne économie bi dafa grow by 5% boobu noonu man ma dugal si suma poos loxo si poos mënumaa gis loolu.
ma demee marché sax
waaw su ma demee marché tamit bagage yi ñu ngi seer ak jumtuwaay bi waaw dafa mel ni comme waaw si kayit si jàngim tubaab ne waaw économie bi yokku na si 5% but li nga xam ne general population bi nekkuñ di fii loolu noonu.
waaye nag economic growth dina dem beyond la na nekk in my pocket isn't it ndig su fekkee ne tali yaa ngee dox electricity te ñu ne improve nañ access by 90% moom la wax ci speech am bi so that's not bad yaa ngi am the infrastructure loolu moo laa jox capacity pour later on nga begin to change things dafa nekk ne rek da ngay am this lag effect between sa infrastructure ak outcome si nga bëgg mu jox la isn't it
moom Mr Mboy speech am bi yëpp soo ko déggee gis nga ne fànn yu bari am nañ large improvement yokkute yu bari am nañ foofu noonu sectors like youth employment bi xal ndaw yi nga xam ne mooy seen am fu ñoo jàppande ko waaye dégga Gambians si loolu fooguma ne loolu tal nañ ko time bi de tali am nañ wax dëgg neex yàlla tali moom am nañ because right now nii da nga xam ne yenn fédéraux si especially soo demee boori bijiloo yooyu le right now nii yooyu yëpp ñu ngi okay but is that the real thing that people really need right now so moo tax suñ ko wax I don't think it really connects to the people fooguma ne nit ñi dañ dee gis that dot si dañ dee mun a bàyyi loolu xel bu baax a baax dañ dee ngo fa si loolu ba mool kono fandi la bang go to the markets things are like skyrocketing Mr Mboy baga solda man diare andu ngama molla interest o waltore ndefe
waaw so ñe si fànn boobu noonu argument yu bari moo fa nekk mooy ndax soo defaree tali soo isee yokkute si wàllum courant bi amul interruption 24 hours mu ngi daw nit ñi ñu ngi am si seen services yi nit ñi nga xam ne ay jula la ñu ngi mun a jaay ak jënda suñ defaree tali yi ñu ngi baax moto ñu ngi dem di ñëw nit ñi tamit ñu ngi def seen business loolu yokkute bu bari la pour réew bu nekk waaw wala tamit soo xoolee ci beneen boor bi su fekkee dund bi mu ngi seer moom ak loolu comme soo ko compare together ñaar yi ban nga ciy jël yépp moom am na solo bon xam nga doomi aadama moom foog nga lekk ba suur balaa ngay xelaat di dawal ci tali yu baax ak am yenn business yi ak yooyu noonu foog mu am
that's it waaye fooguloo ne xëj na bon niñ dee xalaatee situation bi la pour ngay xalaat ne bii moo gën lii ci loo xam ne dafa mel ni kii am mosaic or so many different areas nga war a touch at the same time isn't it ba pare development am na yoo xam ne dafa easier pour ma def than others so perhaps liñ war a def mooy ñu gën a am a more complicated more sophisticated understanding ne waaw am na yi inflation mu ngi difficult but still energy mu ngi tane maa ngi waxtaan ñu bari ñu ne gëj nañ ñoo dog de so yaa ngi gis that element yaa ngi gis that so that's it so xëy na ñun as journalists ñu jéem a encourage more sophisticated understanding of ñun ci luñ nekk te man li ma jaaxal mooy Africa yëpp ñu ñëpp koy complain about the same things
loolu la because da ngay gis ne loolu moo fa nekk rek right now nii baluwo no man jino rek molta understand la no hani mu neketa molta understand la no and then at some point ika mo le lopitanol to fana he talks about the hospitals wax na mbiri wergu yaram bi ñu ngi sampa ay lopitaan ñu ngi joxe ay ambulance loolu yëpp pour gis ne ñu wàññi li nga xam ne mooy coono bu nit ñi dee daj am na yoo xam dëkk yoo xam ne amuñ woon yooyu noonu yëpp but alhamdulillah ñu ngi dem comme ndanka na xam naa ne comme Mr Mboy noo ko waxee doo mun a def yëpp at once but at some point tamit they need to foog ñu déglu nit ñi tamit ila woo si daal moo munti xam nga li ñuy joytu war nañ ko mun a bàyyi xel tamit
waaw maybe mun naa ñëw foofu si soose tuuti bari ngol mi bella moy kambe min kaca kan jang wala ñinti ni nata banko la yiruwa la karola yiruwa be kela silol la karola ti bang jio anin courant bang wala fo yiruwa be kela ning ite demanding soto la jifo kono mi alon ko bagasol damantra serre bage sitano marché to e fen sang mi alon ko se e fan balondino e la dimbal balondino e la kudol fanan keno mi alon ko manke domoro damade bawo fanan kumata bakere nyin ku fulol be min kacaka wala nyindi ko e be sitano nyolale silol nyanta ka dokule courant nyanta ka yurwa sotole jata kende abunda fanan nyanta ka nyantota sotole karan fana na bunda la education je fana mu kulati mi alon ka kumata ka munda ko ni nada yurwa la karola nyil bele nyanta kata nyola bari foybe nyine folo tala ba wala folo kumata nyi nawti ba wala kaca dati
wala nyinin karoti sante sa njuma le mina mol jabi la won léegi lu moo lacce waa lu mooy lacce mooy léegi lii yëpp am na solo pour ñu am ko as citizens because suñu right la pour ñu am ko yaa understand muy wérgu yaram bi muy mbiri li nga xam ne mooy education bi fànnay jàngat bi yoon yi yëpp soxla nañ ko waaye léegi lan naka la ñoo def ba am loolu yëpp at the same time ñu ngi gis improvements yu bari comme na ko waxee courant baa ngi stable because last Tobaski bi rek buñ génnee di waxtaan ak ñi nga xam ne ñoo dee jànkuwanteel courant bi di ko use wan nañu ne gis nañ a big difference bu mag boo xam ne courant baa ngi stable they were able to do seen liggéey bi comme nu mu waree so loolu yëpp soo demee lopitaan yi tamit yaa ngi gis tane so léegi lan moo des loolu mooy wax bi waaw ak kan moo ñu war a dimbale pour provide lu ansas yooyu noonu ak gis ne li des tamit suñu ko ansalee ak naka lañ ko teralee tamit pour askan bi mun a ne ok léegi ñun luñ bëggoon mu ngi teg wala mu door nañoo gis li nga xam ne mooy yokk wàññeeku bi si biir marché yi.
That's it. So perhaps loolu dafa mel ni ki dafa ñu issue ci li ñuy wax governance.
waaw
gis nañ ne am nañ di anti-corruption act, isn't it, 2023. Gis nañ tamit in procurement. am na a new bill. So am na fànn am na lu ñoo jéem a def pour ñu improve suñ governance. Gajaga bëgg naa nga dem more into that.
waaw foog naa loolu daal loo xam ne daal am na solo trop soo ne ATI bi mooy access to information bi soo ñëwee tamit si wàllum anti corruption tamit loolu tamit loo xam ne dafa am solo trop because soo gisee Gambia am na ñoo xam ne you know there is a lot of perception about yëfi corruption comme nit ñi nga xam ne comme dañ dee jël alali réew mi di ko njuuj njaaj am na si report yu jot a génn bon xam nga yooyu pour toppal loi la dem be borom loi daan ko you know su fekkee dañ ko war a tëj ñu tëj ko ak yooyu noonu waaw duñu wax ne rek diw dafa sàcc xaalis rek nga ñëw tëj ko wala def ko naka sudut noonu foog nga toppa si loi so pour nga am ay sarta yi nga xam ne dina dimbale nguur pour yooyu bu mu am wala su amee tamit du néew mooy si am comme loolu daal dafay yóbbu dëkk ci kanam foog naa yooyu ay sarta la yoo xam ne dañ ko war a teral te ba pare toppa ko gis ne daal képp koo xam ne da nga lubal alali réew mi wala nga def njuuj njaaj daal lu jaar si sa kaw because loolu war bëgguñ koo gis daal.
Absolutely. Fu mu nekk gaa ñoo wax ne amuñ time so obviously in the next week nga National Assembly bi ñu ngi debate. That's it ci la ñoo tey dañ doon jox nit ñi flavor rek. ñu taste lana xew tey so man really. benn ci ñu doon interview ci National Assembly bi moom moo capture really the essence of suñ président bi speech am Sona bi mu ne gis nañ expansion of electricity while ci National Assembly at some point light a ngi dem off so it's a mixed baggage nekkut ne benn la or beneen bi expansion baa ngee xew waaye am na issues yoo xam ne ñu ngi war a deal with it mooy regular uninterrupted supply. I think that it's a very good way, very good point where to stop. It's always a mixed baggage. Thank you very much, Lolly and Kamara. I'm sure over the week now you go more into it. Mamadou Gajaga, thank you. And viewers, it's been a long day. Thank you very much. Until next time, goodbye.